Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is George Mbithi. I'm the Director of Communications for USAID's Kenya Investment Mechanism, and I'm asking us to give, I don't know whether we're going to just get started immediatally because we are 6 minutes in. This session is about gender lens investment. And what we'll be looking at, we have lined up different speakers who are going to shed light on gender lens investment and talk about different case studies. And I hope that at the end of the day, we are going to learn a thing or two about mainstreaming gender in mobilizing investments. At this time, I am going to introduce to us the Grace Moi. Dr. Grace Moi is the Deputy Chief of Party for USAID's Kenya Investment Mechanism. Grace is going to give us some opening remarks, and then within just 5 minutes, and then I'm going to ask Elizabeth Wasuna Ochwa, who is Business Banking Director, to also give us some few opening remarks within just 5 minutes, and then we're going to continue from. Thank you so much, and welcome, Dr. Grace.
Good morning, everyone. It's a good morning. We are grateful that we're here. Thank you, George, for the opening introductions. As George has mentioned, I'm the Deputy Chief of Party, so glad to welcome everybody to this session as we look at evidence around health emergencies and related economic downturn. We have seen how women have been impacted severely more than men. And when we look at the gender gap, according to the World Economic Forum, it says that the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has left a lot to be addressed. And actually the gender gap that thought was closed is now going to take us more than 135 years to close. So with this in mind, we're looking at the lack of gender equity becoming a systemic issue in business and investment. So with 267 years to close, I guess we can say that we need to start somewhere. And that's why we're starting with this conversation today as a KIM team to look at how we do gender lens investing initiatives across our business and women-owned businesses. I think one of the key perspectives when to look at the definition of gender lens investment is how we empower women economically to create a virtuous circle, because we know that women have a purchasing power and it's growing. Also looking at entrepreneurs who can empower women to have a greater success, accessing capital resources and those who cannot. Also looking at 50% of the world population being women. This would then make a case for us to represent and use the underutilized talent to create financial products or financial services for them. So if you're looking at investment and gender lens, we're looking at areas, and we hope to discuss this today, around intention to address the gender issues, to promote gender equity, but also look at women-owned and women-led enterprises and how this can offer products. We can offer products to substantiate and also improve the women and the lives of the girls. I think the other thing we'll be looking at today's discussion around investment as a process. What is it that we can do in our gender strategies, in our financial products targeting women SMEs to inform the investment decisions? So I think my takeaway, even as we start off this session, is to say, what are those issues that we need to do as we invest in women-led or women-owned enterprises? How are we going to improve workplace equity? So beyond the products, how else are we looking at the value chains that we serve in terms of workforce equity, which would also mean staffing, management, boardroom representation along the value chain, and how do we enhance that when as we make our decisions so that we're not unconsciously biased towards a certain gender. I think also looking at enterprises that offer products as we look at our investment decisions, as we look at the services that we provide, how are we making that influence or examine our perspectives, our visions, and our address to gender issues as institutions? How is the financial and human resources signifying our commitment to gender equality, and then therefore the products that we offer? So I think I start off this session saying I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the in-depth discussions and knowledge that we'll share across our teams and our discussions today, even as led by Makina, but also looking at instances that we'll learn from each other. What is that unconscious gender bias that we may be going through during the investment processes? Do we need to be gender blind when we do our due diligence on the processes? How best can we make sure that the women-centered products and services that we already have are not then creating a niche product despite them being for the good of greater women and access to all women? So I think I'll leave it here. George, thanks. And I welcome everybody to this session and looking forward to more discussions around gender gap and increasing the gender investments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace. That's quite elaborate. Maybe I should have started by letting people know who we are as Kenya Investment Mechanism. We are a program that is all about connecting business opportunities with financing. What we do this as a market maker, whereby we match those who have money and those who are looking for money. And one of the things that we do is like what we're doing today, exploring gender lens investment, and we have other interventions that we are implementing in the market, and my colleagues will be talking about them in other sessions that will come. And then now at this juncture, I'm going to welcome Elizabeth to give us some very brief opening remarks before we get to getting to know more about the program. Thank you so much and welcome, Elizabeth.
So good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Sometimes technology these days has a way of getting to us, but I'm hoping that I'm loud and clear, and I could just make a few remarks as we begin our session today. Deputy Chief of Party, Dr. Grace Mwai, participating banks, my fellow colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. Today, I'm really excited to be here, just so that we can have a meaningful conversation. I'm really pleased to be part of this workshop on supporting women in business proposition. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of these propositions that is very close to the heart of ABSA, but also to the heart of a lot of women in Kenya, because it is one of those propositions, and I think propositions across the financial industry are supported by other banks and financial institutions, where I think the time is right. The stars are aligned for us to really enable the women. I'd like to particularly thank Kenya Investment Mechanism for facilitating this workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, many of us have come from places and have family in places where labor of women is critical for holding communities up together. All too often, our labor and contribution is not always fully recognized. And also often, women are denied their fair share of access to opportunities. This is a challenge, not just in Africa, but across the world. Fortunately, governments and business are gradually beginning to appreciate that women's talent and contribution is critical for development of economies of their countries and economies of the world. Our gender diversity program in ABSA is one that has taken us a lot of time to just think through, and it has taken many years. It dates back to over 40 years when our first woman, Dr. Mary Okello, became our first female branch manager at a time when banking industry was highly discriminatory against women. Over time, our commitment to diversity and inclusion has paid off and played a significant role in advancing the agenda equality across economic segments. In 2014, we became the first listed company in the country to achieve a 50-50 gender balance at board level. And today we are proud to be one of those most diverse organizations with 48% representation of women in our employee population. An achievement that is focused, an achievement that just didn't happen by chance, but one that leadership of the bank really focused on to ensure that we empower and we enable women of the company. Last year, we instituted a group-wide women manifesto, which outlines significant initiatives that promote diversity and inclusion across the bank under the sponsorship of our group CEO and chairman. We also became signatories of the UN program Target Agenda Equality, whose main purpose is to continue bridging the gender gap. As a country, we still have significant milestones to cover before we can claim to have fully embraced diversity. Women are still faced with many real and perpetual hurdles that have tipped the scales against them and made it more difficult to succeed with certain opportunities. I think that is the gender lens that Ms. Grace mentioned that we must employ, we must take on for us to see things differently. For instance, consider land ownership, which is a big determining factor to accessing credit from financial institutions such as ourselves and others. Women only hold less than 10% of registered title deeds in Kenya, which means that it is more difficult for them to access secured credit from financial institutions. Yet they contribute over 50% of the country's population and over 33% of registered businesses. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is a fact that we always talk about as a bank because it was a clear determinant. It looked like one of those aspects that we tied our women's legs and arms and still expected them to operate in the same, at the same level with their male counterparts, and yet they were not able. Ladies and gentlemen, inclusion is not just a nice thing to do. It is the right thing to do, and a key success factor that the business community and country leadership should embrace and must embrace. That was the motivation behind the launch of the ABSA She Business account, which is tailor-made for the needs of the woman entrepreneur, whether you are starting out as a business or running a big corporation. We have taken time to listen to the challenges that women across the country and across the nation have been having issues with. And key amongst them, we came up with 4 that we must address, not just as a bank, but all financial institutions together. This includes the access to the finance that I've spoken about. We've spoken about mentorship and coaching, which is something that women particularly need to enhance their confidence, their knowledge. We must be able to provide them with mentorship and coaching. The third one is access to information, because we do realize that access to information and then training must be something that supplements the information skills gap that we find women have. And also, we needed to be able to let them access trade opportunities. And therefore, the issue of networking was another key pillar that we came up with. And networking, not just for the local they find themselves in, the national market and international markets. Because by and large, for women to grow, we must stop being myopic. We must open our minds to be able to see the full picture that we must embrace to support the various economies of the countries that we support. As a true African bank that believes in the special nature of African women who continuously finds unique ways to get things done, which is what we call Africanacity, we believe that we have a proposition that addresses the unique needs of women entrepreneurs in Kenya. We have committed as a bank to empower over 1 million women entrepreneurs across the country over the next 5 years, with the requisite financial and non-financial support to scale up and take their businesses to the next level. We would like to reiterate our commitment to continue advancing the gender agenda in our organization, and as well as supporting the financial institutions by and large. So ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to take up too much in time in many conversations or many words, but it's just to encourage this conversation such that we should come together as financial organizations to make sure that we put center of this conversation. Sometimes as financial institutions, we tend to pull apart and do things that we, it's competition, and it's good to be competitive as banks. But I would encourage us to always have a view of putting women in the center of all conversations that we have to ensure we can empower them, because by and large, that is a legacy that we would like to leave as banks and probably as individuals who are participating in this particular agenda. So thank you very much, and God bless you all as we have this conversation moving forward. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. MC.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for those opening remarks. And because I am going to ask my colleague Anne Mwenje, Anne is going to be talking to us about our financial institutions program and what is it that we do with our financial institutions. Anne is the Financial Institutions Director for Kenya Investment Mechanism, and I am going to share the screen as Anne introduces herself. Welcome, Anne, and I'm going to share the slides that you will be speaking through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, George, and thank you, Elizabeth, for that opening wonderful remarks that you've shared with us, especially on gender. As George shares his screen, I've been in banking for very many years, and I have worked with several of the people on this call, and I'm glad to be here and presenting what we do under KIM, under USAID KIM, and that is in the section that I lead, we look at financial institutions, and we have several. Under that, we have commercial banks, SACCOs, microfinance, and investment firms. On this particular call, we have commercial banks, and because they're the movers and shakers, especially in what we are doing, that's why we needed to have this conversation about what we are doing for the women and for the women-owned enterprises. How are we looking at lending to them? I will start my presentation, and to conserve bandwidth, I will log off. I will put up my screen. And every time we are getting a new commercial bank or a new financial institution, they'll always ask us, why agriculture? Why do we look at agriculture? Why is KIM interested in agriculture? If we remember when we were growing up, we were told agriculture is the backbone of our Kenyan economy. And looking at statistics, they say it represents 33% of our GDP. But when we look at the lending book for most of the financial institutions, it represents only 4%. And that is why now we want us to keep talking about agriculture. We all have taken something in the morning, and whatever we took came from agriculture. It didn't come from any other sector other than agriculture. So we all need to have our hands and everything within ourselves to come together and make sure that agriculture is working in Kenya, that we are self-reliant as a country. We also have to work and enhance agriculture-led economy. We also have to look at improving nutrition outcomes, and we also have to build sustainable market systems. And this cannot be done without financial institutions. It cannot be done without commercial banks. And in agriculture, women play fundamental roles in this sector, especially in the production. So when we look at agriculture under KIM, we look at the entire value chain approach. We will look at producers, that's the farmers. We will look at input supplies. We will look at aggregators. We will look at processors. We will look at manufacturers, transporters, wholesalers, processors, packaging and warehousing, and eventually retailers. So we look at it from end to end, even storage, even marketing and sales, we will look at it. So whatever you're doing within the agricultural space and it is within the financial institution, we will look at it. Again, on this call, I'm glad to say that everybody, except I think one institution, everybody is on board with us. So the other one institution is actually joining us. I'm hoping by end of this month, they will be on board so that we can all change our agriculture. We can also change the market system. We can also make sure that money is being mobilized and capital is being mobilized to this specific sector. The next slide, George, thank you. So we have two schemes that we mainly touch on, and the first one is Feed the Future Kenya. Under Feed the Future Kenya, we look at the following value chains. There's dairy, and that's now like your milk. There is livestock. I'll explain in the next slide what it is. And we have horticulture. And then we have energy for agriculture. And energy for agriculture can be biogas, can be solar. So it is anything to do with agriculture that is energy related. We will look at it. The next slide on livestock. Let us look at the value chains that we look at. We have mangoes, passion fruits, bananas, avocados, pineapples, sweet potatoes, Africa green leafy vegetables, groundnuts, soybeans, sorghum, green grams, and maize. Those are the 12 that we look at. In livestock, we have the following: cattle, that's beef, we have pigs, camel, sheep, poultry, fish, and bees. Those are the value chains that we look at under the Feed the Future Kenya. And then we had said also the dairy and energy for agriculture. Now, under Feed the Future Kenya, we look at the 17 counties, and that's Makueni, Kitui, Taita Taveta, Isiolo, Garissa, Wajir, Turkana, Marsabit, Kakamega, Bungoma, Busia, Vihiga, Siaya, Kisumu, Migori, Homa Bay, and in Kisii. And I'll explain to you why we look at this specific value chains. So what we are saying is that in case your client and the financial institution, in case your client sources from or sells to these particular counties, then that will qualify under these particular Feed the Future counties. Let's say that you're sourcing your milk from Vihiga. This qualifies. Or let's say that you're selling your milk to any of these counties, then that transaction qualifies under Feed the Future Kenya. So it's sourcing and selling to any of these 17 counties. Okay, we'll look at the next one, which is Feed the Future Regional. Under this, we look at all the food value chains, especially in the agricultural space, and it has to have either a regional or an international trade linkage. Let's say you're doing tea, or let's say you're doing coffee, you're doing macadamia, or you're doing any of the value chains that you have within your agriculture space, but there is now the international or regional component that qualifies. And in this, we exclude floriculture, because what we are looking for is that we are looking at the food security of our country. So for now, we excuse floriculture, which again is doing well within the agricultural space. And we look at all the 47 counties under this. It doesn't matter, you're in Nairobi, you're in Kiambu, wherever you are, we will look at whatever transaction that you're looking at, okay? Now, we normally pay an incentive fee. Because of COVID, we were paying 3%, but now from 1st June, we are paying 1%. And this 1% is the total value of what you've disbursed. We pay you an incentive fee of 1%. And the differences that I had told you is that you will need to show us that this transaction falls either under Feed the Future Kenya or it falls under Feed the Future Regional. Feed the Future Kenya, we look at the selected value chains as I've highlighted, and we look at FTF counties, the 17 of them. And under Feed the Future Regional, we look at all agricultural value chains and excluding floriculture. So I'm hoping that now we have a better clarity of what we look for and what we pay for. And if you have any returns that you need to submit, please submit before May 31st so that you can still get the 3%. The 3% was just to help us cushion the COVID hit that was in the economy. But from 1st June, we revert back to 1%. Thank you. I think that is the end. I'll welcome any questions from anybody in the panel or anybody within the webinar for any questions or clarifications.
Thank you. If you have any question, please raise your hand and I will enable you to unmute yourself. If you have questions for Anne, please raise your hand, use the raising hand option, and we will allow you to ask a question that you may. Okay, then thank you so much, Anne. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation on what Kenya Investment Mechanism does with financial institutions. We have that is actually looking at supply of capital. everything that we do with financial institutions, we are looking at supply of capital. Now we are going to speak to you about the demand side of things. And for this, I will welcome Dr. Grace Mwai again, who is our Deputy Chief of Party, to speak to us briefly about our demand side of investments. And this is our work with business advisory service providers, who I believe are some of the people who are here. As Grace comes, because of time, we couldn't be able to allow each and every one of us to introduce themselves. So I will ask us to use the chat session, the chat section, to introduce ourselves. Just ensure that you write a message to everyone and you type your name, the organization that you're coming from, and then from there people will be able to interact with you during the session. So welcome, Dr. Grace, and I ask all of us to introduce ourselves in the chat box. Thank you.
Judge, you can see my screen, just to confirm?
Yes, I can see it. Please put presentation mode.
Sure. Okay, so once again, a pleasure to be sharing around our business advisory service provider approach. So we work across the 4 buckets. So we have the business advisory pipeline that looks at performance basis to convert business opportunities into bankable transactions. And I'll speak briefly about how we do that. Then we have what Anne spoke to, which is financial institutions and how we stimulate and hope to expand services to the undeserved sectors. Then we have the building capacity across partners. So we have a strategic partnership pool of partners that we work with along the value chain, just to be able to enhance capital mobilization, but also create a business enabling environment for all. And then we have connecting firms with risk mitigation tools, which could be in fintech or could be in climate or going green type of ventures, or looking at how best we de-risk the markets through our credit guarantee portfolio and provisions that we do that. So for the business advisory service providers, the key agenda that we're trying to address is the insufficient quality consulting services. That is financial transaction advisory and strategy. This we've seen across different SMEs that come to us or come to yourselves as financial institutions, and they do not have proper documentation. They do not know what's a process and where to start. So this we've been able to work across by addressing that key market constraint by hiring business advisory service providers, some of whom are on this call. Then we also have seen limited number of quality deals. So with a business advisory service provider, then we're able to counter this by providing advice, by providing business modeling tools, by providing ideas around reshaping the company, be it from governance to how they do their business and who are their target markets. It could range across different tech sectors and different quality services being provided around the business. What this has also done is that we have been able to address pipelines from sourcing to transactions. There are people who come to King and their agenda is give us businesses that we can fund or give us places that we can invest. So as Anne talked about the supply side, and from the demand side, we then have a ready pipeline for consideration. And this has also happened in some of the sessions that we've organized with business advisory service providers and the financial institutions. So the key elements of our business advisory service program side, or what we call the demand side, is that we have contracts with business advisory service providers. Currently, we have 41 of them in place compared to 21 financial institutions. I guess it's the demand side asking for more services. Then we also have funding across different types. So we have blended finance, we have debt and equity, and this could range from term loans, trade finance, working capital, equity. The only thing is that we do not pay a success fee for grants alone, but if it comes in a blended finance model, then we would be able to pay for the debt or equity raised portion of that blended finance deal. We currently are at 1% of the loan or investment raised for the business advisory service providers, but we had also done an incentive to cushion across COVID-19 and the responses and what businesses have had to endure. So we have this running through to September at 2% for the business advisory service providers. The other unique part, and I'm glad we're talking about gender lens around this, is we have a percentage fee dedicated to women. So if you bring in a deal or a transaction that has women owned 51% and above, you get 0.5% of the transaction value dispersed. So this is an incentive to encourage us to have transactions or pipelines that include women. And then the success fee is reduced over time. We do not pay the same for the subsequent second round or third round of funding. And then the investment to the same firm for the for the initial 2 rounds, the same firm received no success fee from him, but you can receive from the SME. So the uniqueness about this model is that the expectation is that what we pay does not cushion the full market cost to provide business advisory services, but we expect that on the same initiament and at the same engagement level at the beginning of the transaction, we expect that the business advisory service provider then gets into an engagement letter with the SME to get part of the services paid for by the SME. So subsequent raising of capital can then be paid at an additional fee by the SME by the program, because then we have an agenda to raise capital and catalyze, and will not be able to pay subsequent fees. So currently, like I mentioned, we have different firms in our book. So we have regulated transaction advisors like Genghis Capital, Diane Blair, and Dry Associates. We also have niche advisory firms that are very particular in what they're looking for. They specify a sector or they specify the ticket size of deals that they would like to work with. This is Starling, Maitri, just to name a few. And then we have finance and accounting firms that would then also bring in the business modeling and book record keeping and updates of the transactions that the SMEs keep. So this is PKF, Park and Randall, and Grant Thornton, to name a few. And then we've also gone ahead, as Anne mentioned, we have counties that we work in, especially for Kenya. Then we have AfriFoods, Kahie Consulting, Swaso, and Sheikh Associates, among others, serving the northern and region, all the regions of Kenya, focusing on the counties. So with the different perspectives, and we are able to handle any type of transaction or deal that comes to us because of the unique differentiators that we have in our business advisory service providers. The service provided currently is financial modeling. We look at market assessment, we look at valuation, we look at investor negotiations, making a pitch deck, having them at the meetings to support the SMEs as they do the finance and investment presentations, but also looking at beyond that sustainability and how can they run the business. So what would work in the short term and what would work in the long term in terms of utilization and shareholding. The other access to finance that we've done to date is that we have a pipeline of $655 million from the BASFs to date. This is supporting 373 enterprises looking for finance. We are excited that majority women-owned enterprises supported to date is 61, but we are gearing up, and that's why part of the session today is to have this discussion around women and gender lens. We have 97 million mobilized for enterprises by BAPS since Kim started. And then the key sectors, like Anne had mentioned, that we have financed to date is horticulture, livestock, dairy, financial services, logistics, ICT, that includes fintech and other tools and solution, washes, sanitation, and health, and water and sanitation is wash, and then we have health and energy. The current, and I want to leave us with these reflective questions as we've been engaging with the past. There's been a few questions that come to mind. And one of the questions we're asking ourselves is a BAS incentive effective in lending to women SMEs? Are we doing enough? Do we need to do a better model as we engage with women SMEs? What is the value that is fit for structure? Should we do it differently for women SMEs? Is it too small? Does it cost more to onboard or have business advisory services provided to women SME to become investment ready? Another concern and question that we're asking ourselves in as we model and get the program going is, can women SME afford to pay for the technical assistance support? Like we mentioned, is that the SME is expected to pay part of the business advisory services cost given, because this is an incentive and catalyze from the project. However, does this then reduce the pipeline to the business advisory service providers, since the women possibly cannot pay for the fee, does it mean then they don't have a mini number of women in the pipeline? Also, the other bit would be lack of clarity on the value provided to the women SME. Are they aware that business advisory service providers exist? Are they aware of how the costing is done, the modeling, and what differentiates and the value that they would get as women SMEs to access to finance? Sometimes also in terms of women having been turned on debt financing, are they aware that the business advisory service providers would be able to assist them to get to be investor ready or to get their documentation in place to be considered for equity or a debt financing? The other bit that we have seen, and this has come through with some of our business advisory service providers, is that the larger SME owned by women are easier to work with and sometimes take less effort. So what we do with the smaller and micro businesses, how do we commensurate the cost given to get them ready to be investor ready versus the time it takes? What is the best model to get this going? And I'm glad that we're having this conversation today so we can start thinking through this. Also in terms of engagement with the banks, how do we link the financial institutions and the business advisory service providers so that we have a right fit even as we engage with women SMEs and learn of your financial products and how that fits to what we need to do with the women. So I think with that, I leave you with a few questions, but also a few areas to reflect as we the conversation going. Back to you, George.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Grace. I think as of now, everybody can see now, Kenya investment mechanism is not just looking at supply of capital, but we are also looking at how can we stimulate demand for capital for the sectors and value chains that we are working in. At this time, I will welcome Makena. Makena Mwiti is the gender advisor for Kenya Investment Mechanism. And Makena is going to talk to us about Women Economic Empowerment Fund and the Palladium GSO program. If I didn't mention when I was introducing, Kenya Investment Mechanism is implemented by the Palladium Group. So Makena, welcome as you introduce yourself and then set up your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Good morning.
George,
yes,
you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yes, good morning. It's a beautiful day out there. A bit of clouds, but I'm very, very excited to be here with you this morning. My name is Makena Mwiti, and I'm the gender advisor at KIM. Whenever we have any issues talking or relating to women, it gets me really excited because I so believe in what on what women's potential is, and I think we are at a position where we can make such a big difference. Elizabeth, I really just want to thank you so much for your wonderful opening remarks, and I really liked what you said when you said that the stars are aligned, and you couldn't have said it better. Because now we are in a position where we're seeing a lot of organizations, a lot of financial institutions, everybody is now focusing on women, on gender lens investing. So it is time for us to be having these conversations and to be having really candid conversations and really trying to push the needle. Sometimes I feel like we've been talking about gender mainstreaming, gender trainings, but we still seem not to have made the big difference and push that needle as far as we'd want it to go. But I think the time is now, and even when I was organizing this session, this interactive session, I really wanted to make it as practical as possible, where financial institutions, women entrepreneurs, and business advisory service providers are all in one forum and all exchanging ideas, all finding out what's new. The banks that I invited for the program all have women markets programs. So we'll have a session where we'll share, each bank will be able to share their program, which again is a great learning. It's a great learning opportunity. And we'll also have some sessions on understanding the business case, the strategic planning, and then also the opportunity that the market, women's markets presents. So let me just say a few words about the USAID Women's Economic Empowerment Program. So basically what the program will be doing is it seeks to unlock access to finance for women-owned SMEs through FIs and BASPs. So Anne presented about the FI program, and Grace presented about the BASP program. So what the Women's Economic Empowerment Program, it's not trying to do anything different or anything new. It's working with the existing infrastructure and framework that Kim already has. So for example, the financial institutions that they're working with, the program is now working with the financial institutions to encourage them now to lend to more women. Hence this forum where we have now financial institutions that are focusing on women. We've also invited BASPs, and there's some BASPs who primarily focus on women. And so the whole idea is to encourage them to look out for more women, to connect them to women, different women associations, to train them on what it means for the banks to lend to women. But the most important thing and the most objective I really wanted for this session was to make that connection in terms of financing institutions and the BASPs and bringing you together. Because the BASPs are the ones that are going to provide the bankable, profitable pipeline to the financial institutions. And the financial institutions, I know you're always looking for good clients. And because when I meet some of the financial institutions, they'll be like, yeah, McKenna, we're open. We really want to lend to women, but where are the women? So now we have the BASPs here who are working very hard with the women, trying to equip them and train them and present their business plans and bring that all together. So we have that link. And what we're going to do actually in the afternoon is that we're going to have a one-on-one session. So we have 3-4 banks represented here, and each bank will have a 1-hour session with the business advisory service providers. And the business advisory service providers have already come with proposals, with deals from women-owned businesses. So this will be a very interesting session because they'll be able to present these deals, live deals, you know, from the women to now people in the banking sector. And I went ahead and talked to the banks about this, and they nominated the right people. So people in the women's markets, people in credit, who are the decision makers and who are the ones who can give the best advice. So the whole idea is to make that connection, present those proposals, and then also open that line of communication. So for example, if BAS, let's say for example, Catherine, who's one of our top BSPs when it comes to women-owned businesses, and ABSA, let's say Daniel from ABSA, they will meet and they will make that connection. And then, so whenever there are any other transactions, then they'll know exactly who to get in touch with. So that's what we're going to be doing. And then I just also wanted to mention about gender opportunity assessment. So we, Palladium, as George said, we work with Palladium, and Palladium have a gender assessment tool that they have developed, which does an assessment on the financial institutions, an assessment on strategy, on leadership and employment. It looks also at marketing and analysis, and also looks at the products and services. So the whole idea is that we have sent out an expression of interest, and we're inviting banks to apply for this assessment. The whole idea is that it'll be an inward-looking assessment in terms of how the bank is currently structured. So it'll be a chance for you to really see where and how you can do better, or where you're doing really well. And during the assessment also, Kim will conduct interviews with the focus group discussions with senior leadership, and also with the existing financial clients, your prospective clients. So that's really what's going to happen. So look out for the link. I'll also make sure that I forward it to you once we have it, so that you can be able to now go on to the next application process. So that's the gender opportunity assessment. So look out for that, and we can see then where to go from there. Okay, so I said we're going to make this a very interactive session. So I would like you to look at this picture, all of you, and I'm going to ask just 2 or 3 people just to shout it out. When you look at this picture, what do you see? What do you see when you look at this picture? Anyone? Let me call Elizabeth. Elizabeth, are you still there? Yes, Catherine, what do you see?
Yes, I am. A parrot.
Okay, let's start with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, what do you see when you look at this picture?
I see a very colorful parrot seated on a stump.
You see a very colorful parrot seated on the stump. Okay, great. Catherine, what do you see?
It's the same thing, a parrot.
You see a parrot. Okay, very good. Susan, are you there? Susan Situma?
Yes, I am, Akena. I see a very beautiful parrot with a long tail.
Okay, with a long tail. Okay, and I see somebody here who says that they see a man. Does anyone see a man? Oh, yes. Can anyone see? You see a body? Yes. Jumane Tafaye says he sees a body paint on a person. Yes, fantastic. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
The body paint of a person?
Yes.
Good.
It's quite built up.
So you can actually, yes, it's quite built up, and you can see it's they're actually leaning back, and the leg, which were the feathers, are now the person's legs.
Yes.
Grace, can you see that?
Yes, finally.
Can you see the 2 different pictures?
Okay. I still can't, I think, and I'm in my space.
At first glance, maybe remove the specs. At first glance, you see a parrot, but if you observe keenly, you get to see a body.
Exactly. What about Grace Moy? I want to hear what Grace, can you see both of them?
None. I'm like George.
Okay.
Yeah, good Spider-Man.
Then it looks like it's for those who are doing specs, they don't see anything else. I have seen it now. Oh,
okay.
God.
Now, good. So the reason why I wanted to show you, to start off with this slide, is just to tell you that when we are looking to serve women, or when we're looking at gender finance and gender-lens investment, it's only about changing our perspective, okay? So it's not about looking at something that is completely new or rocket science, like people like to say. It's only about changing our perspective. So when we serve women and when we are serving men, what's the difference? There is a difference, but you'll find out now as I go through the training, it's really about changing the perspective and looking at things differently. So I see a parrot, somebody else sees a man, and that's exactly what we want to encourage both the financial institutions, both the business advisory services, to really look at things in a different way, to think out of the box, to be as creative and as imaginative as possible. So let's move on to the next slide. Is it me who's controlling it or George?
Me, I'm actually trying to move. Yes, there you go.
Okay, another short quiz here. 50%, 80%, 90%, and 51%. Who can tell me what some of these percentages represent? Any of them, you can just pick one. 90%, for example. No idea? Okay, let's move on to the next slide in the interest of time. Susan.
Yes, McKenna, I thought you would tell us there's a prize.
Okay, I'll make sure there's a prize for the next one, but let's go to the next slide. So this is just some statistics to show how, and I think Grace shared some of that, but 50% plus worldwide average of women's earnings as a percentage of men. 80% of cross-border traders are women. 90% of proportion of increased earnings women spend on family and welfare. 51% of the female percentage of the population. And then we need 100% of the population to succeed. So this is just a slide that shows that women are participating, women are present, women have, research shows us that, when we invest in women, we invest in the whole family. So this is some of the reasons why we actually, looking at this segment and really trying to see what there must be a business case in terms of lending to women. Let's move to the next slide. So as we seek gains for all East Africans or all Kenyans, we need the entire population to be involved. But what we are finding is that women still struggle with the low status, low and irregular incomes, resources, legal and cultural obstacles, all of which define their identity. And I like this poster that says, when men are oppressed, it's a tragedy, but when women are oppressed, it's tradition. So the whole idea is, we are not saying that we are not able to do it, but it's more of looking for opportunities, creating opportunities for the women so that they're able to participate fully in the financial sector in this case. Move on to the next slide. So again, here are some of just statistics from different studies that have been held. And again, here we're just trying to reiterate the fact that the female economy globally is large and growing. And when you think about it, most people only just focus on entrepreneurship, with some of the data from the Gender Enterprise Monitor, where you have 98 million women around the world running established businesses. But there's also potential when you look at women when it comes to wealth. For example, in emerging markets, women's income is growing at 8.1% compared to 5.8% for men. That's some research done by Deloitte. And then there's also the whole issue of consumer behavior, because what we're finding now is that the women control up to 20 trillion, can you imagine, of consumer spending? And they also make up 80% of consumer decisions worldwide. So the women's economy is a large economy and it's growing at a really fast pace. So this is an economy that cannot be ignored. It cannot be ignored. I remember reading once where somebody was saying the largest economies are China, and now the next largest economy is going to be the female economy. So you can see the potential is there and it continues to grow. And we also feel this here in Kenya when we look at the different statistics that have been done by the World Bank Group. Shall we move to the next slide? I'm conscious of time, but I think I'll do okay. George, can you move to the next slide? Yes, so here, this is some of the ratios I wanted to share with you. So there's this institution that's called the GBA, and it stands for Global Banking Alliance for Women. And this is an international alliance, which has the partners of the alliance are banks that have women programs. So it's a really, really good network. I think Barclays Bank, ABSA, I don't know whether you're a member of the Global Banking Alliance. SBM, I think you may be, and KCB, I'm also, I think, I'm not very sure. But this is a really good alliance, because what it does is it brings banks from all over the world. So it's a great place to learn what other banks are doing. And these are some of the statistics that they have gotten when it comes to the share of non-performing loans. So they get the global banks, the different banks to share information. So you can see when it comes to non-performing loans, women are actually much lower than men when it comes to the non-performing loans. And then when we look at the loan to deposit ratio, again, we find that the women, so the women is slightly lower than what we see with the men. So this Global Banking Alliance is something that we can also have a conversation with AFTA. If you'd want us to facilitate an introduction for you with this alliance, we will be able to do that. We'll go to the next slide. So despite all these things I've shared about how women are, powerful economy, they have this so much potential, the market opportunity still remains untapped. And when I see so many banks, like, in fact, last week when I saw ABSA, or 2 weeks ago, ABSA launched the She account, I was so excited because the market is so large. And even if we have 10, we have 43 banks in Kenya, we even have at least half of those banks targeting the women's markets, then, we would at least say that we are doing something. So despite the strong consumer and economic and entrepreneurship trends, there still remains a huge gap in gender financial services. And even these gaps, as Grace also reiterated earlier, are also seen also when it comes to employment, when it comes to skills. So there are these gender gaps. So here we are saying that women are underserved and women are unserved, okay? So underserved here, we're saying that they are dissatisfied with the financial institutions that they currently have. Those are some of the statistics. Again, most of this has come from the Boston Consulting Group. So 73% of women reported being unsatisfied with their banking services. 67% of women in some of the world's largest economies feel their financial advisors do not understand them or are not interested in serving them. And then when we look at women who are unserved, and then these are not able to access financial services at all. So we said like 15% are less likely to have a bank account as compared to men in low middle income. 80% of women-owned SMEs with credit needs are unserved and underserved. So this statistics on this slide is just to show you that despite the huge potential that the women's markets have, there's still a lot to be done. Next slide, please. So then there are many myths when we talk to the lenders who have not yet uncovered the potential of the female economy. I know the lenders in the room probably have, but maybe there are a few of these myths that is still there. So the first myth is that men and women are the same. And the reality is that men and women have different attitudes towards finance. And I'm sure you agree with me, and I have some interesting slides later where we can discuss this. And then the second myth is all we need is products that are feminized. And that's a real myth, because the reality is serving women is about offering a holistic value proposition that is tailored to each sub-segment specific needs. This is why I really liked what Elizabeth said about providing a holistic approach. So not only are we looking at financial services, but she spoke about non-financial services, coaching and mentoring. Yeah, they may look like very small things, but you find that women, once you offer that holistic value, that is exactly what they want. Then the second one is there's no business case. We spend the last 3 or 4 slides showing exactly what the business case is. And the reality, serving women is about offering a holistic value, again, tailored to each sub-segment. And then the other one, there is no data on gender. And the reality is that banks often have better data than they realize. And just to give you an example, once I was working with a bank in Tanzania, and we were trying to get them to serve the women's markets. And the senior leadership team would tell me, but McKenna, we're already serving the women's markets. There's no need for us to reach out to more women. And then the next question would be like, for me was like, okay, so let's see, can we have a look at the data? And then they'll be like, no, we don't actually keep that kind of data. But upon further examination, they were able to collect sex disaggregated data. And the sex disaggregated data showed that they were actually only serving 5% of the women's markets. Yet there was huge potential. You can imagine in the country in Tanzania, how much potential there is to show that. So this whole idea of collecting sex disaggregated data is big. It's kind of like the next big thing that donors are talking about, international partners are talking about, because it is something that that offers the big difference. So yes, so this is again what I was talking about, the holistic approach. So the women want recognition, networking, education, information, and finance. You can go to the next slide. So the first myth again, men and women are the same. So these are just the same points that are just repeated. But what I really want to bring out here is point number 4, that women value relationships, they value sharing experiences, and they act on the recommendations of their peers. And they are also less networked. If a woman is happy with a service or from a financial institution, not only is she going to continue with that institution, because women have seen to be loyal, but she will tell all her friends. And they will all come to that financial institutions, because they'll be like, yeah, this institution, it understands us, and they really understand what it is that we want to do. The next slide. Finance. Women have significantly less access to finance. That's the reality. So it's difficult for women entrepreneurs to access capitals. I worked with a bank in Oman, Muscat, and we do personal loans because it's easier. I was asking for funding, but they didn't give it to me. So I started with taking small personal loans. Men go in and ask for the world, but women ask for bit by bit. Again, this now leads to various issues. So they lack the traditional collateral, they lack the credit history, they tend to have only partial financial statements, and they often have been operating their businesses for less than 3 years. So the solution is really to design workarounds to enable access to finance. The next slide. Then again, here are just some of the statistics also that show women want relationship-based financial services. And I think it's because women, we are relationship people. We work well in relationships. You know, we do not work well in isolation. We do not work well on our own, but we find that, you know, if we are given that relationship-based, just like the bank does with the relationship managers, you find that, you know, once you have a relationship manager, you actually become more confident. So for example, advisor makes efforts to endure. I understand where my investments are and why. So you see 55% for women. Advisor and I work as a team, 35% for women. So the solution is to build a customer-centric workforce, train the frontline staff to take a relationship-based approach with the women. And when we're talking about a relationship-based approach, it's not, just to explain it further, what it means is that, you know, the women want to know that if they have any question, for example, an SBM bank, can I call Margaret, for example? At least I know Margaret is there. I know she can help answer the questions. And even if she's not able to answer the questions, she can direct somebody else to answer those questions for me. And then you feel that as you're walking, because it's about a journey with the women, so that they feel that, you know, they're comfortable and there's always a place where they can go. Next slide, George, thank you. Don't get tired. Information, very, very key, very, very key. And I know most of the banks are already talking about this, yeah. So the reality is women tend to want more information than men before making a decision. And this is because we say that women are more, you know, they're risk averse. So they seek for information. They want to make sure that they get a lot of information before they know what they're doing. So the solution, again, is to offer product information in an easily accessible place and easy to understand manner, to train the frontline staff to better provide women with the information that they need. Okay, next slide. I'm going to be rushing now because we're almost up for our break. Women want to be educated. That's the reality. Women tend to be less financially literate. So the women report less experience, knowledge, less confidence. And bank in Australia, Westpac, which is one of the leading banks when it comes to gender financing, 45% of the Australian SME women do not have projected cash flows. Imagine, and that's like one of the biggest banks. Women in particularly seek training related to financial management. So what are the solutions here? The solution is to provide financial and business education programs that position these as core products. I think that should be, we just have 2 more slides. Church networks, yes. So this we have already spoken about. Women flourish when they are in networks. They find that they are able to get advice from their colleagues. So again, here the solution is to create networking opportunities as many as you can as you build your customer networks, and then position this as a core offering, yeah? So not just a one-off thing, but then we have these networking circles every month, and this is what you can also be part of. And then the next slide is recognition, yes. The reality is women need role models. If you can see it, you can't be it. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So women flourish under role models. They are able to identify with them. They are able to mentor and coach with them. The women's success stories are often left untold. So just creating this whole idea of where women can share their success stories not only encourages other women to be part of the process, but it also helps to build that confidence. And it's interesting to see, like, even when you sit in the focus group discussions, you find that confidence is actually a big issue when it comes to women. So the solution is to create awards and other recognition programs that draw attention to successful and inspiring women. Then the next slide. So again, just what I'm saying, just to bring all this back together. So the reality is that serving women requires a holistic value proposition where you have networks, you have recognition, you have information, and you have education. Next slide. And this one here now is really just to show how women, the solution is also to offer product bundles that wrap around services based on the life goals. So if you're looking at women, you can also bundle products that are looking at education for their children, for example, products that focus on health and well-being, housing, mortgages, you know, the business and their career, because you find that now when you offer again a bundled approach, so they just bank with one bank. Like, for example, they will be with KCB Bank, because KCB Bank will give them a loan for their children, they will be able to get a mortgage. So that, again, product bundling is something that we have found has really worked for women. And this is often based on their life cycle, at what stages they're in. Next slide. And then the other thing that always comes back is that women do not want products that are feminized. You know, the reality in most markets is that they do not like pink marketing. They don't want a pink credit card, for example. I think there was a bank some time back that had a pink credit card. But it's more than that, you know, it's to avoid the cliches, drop the pink and fluffy marketing, deliver on promises, be a good corporate citizen, get personal. So it's to understand what the women want, and honestly, the women want to be treated very seriously. They're not just pink. And then again, there's no business case. The reality is the women are profitable customers. And there's no data. The reality is that the people are collecting data, and it'll be interesting to hear even from other banks how they're doing that. But that is also something very important. And I believe this is the last slide, George. So thank you. I shall hand it over now back to you, George.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. For me, it is really eye-opening to just see the business case that is available, you know, when banks and financial institutions are serving women. We are cognizant that, you know, you've been sitting down for over 1 hour now. At this time, we're going to give us a break, and I request us not to leave the call. You can just step out for, you know, we're giving like 30 minutes. You step out for, you know, a bathroom break, you know, grab coffee and get back. You don't want to miss out on the next session, whereby different financial institutions who have been invited will be talking about the women's program that they have in their banks. And we are looking at case studies. We are looking, you know, some products that are in the market. This is to the most exciting part of this training, whereby we are now getting real, and we are looking at these financial institutions and what do they have in the market. How has it been working? How, you know, these are the real cases that we have in the market. And I have looked at the registration. Only a few of us have been able to register. Please share with us your details. Caroline is going to post the link once again on the chat. Please use this break to key in your details. We like keeping a record of the people who show up in our trainings, and that will enable us to also include you in other programs that we are going to be having going forward. Thank you so much, and we are going to take this break and get back. I'm going to put in a presentation that is a countdown. So when that 30 minutes come to an end is when we are going to get back to the next session. Thank you and have a nice break. Thank you so much, everybody who has hung around in the call. I hope we all had a refreshing break. As I had said when we were going for a break, we are going to have another session whereby we are going to have McKenna still going on to talk to us about understanding the women market opportunity, and then now she will usher in some case studies from financial institutions who are in the house with us today, and these are to just show us what is available in the market there. McKenna, if you can start sharing your screen for the presentation that you're going to be having, it will be my pleasure to invite you for to take it forward as people continue to stream in, those who had already left. McKenna, is your presentation ready?
Okay, great. So now we're going to look at understanding the opportunity in the bank, and we're going to look at internal analysis and data, how to do external analysis, and quantifying the opportunity. And once I finish this presentation, I will then do a short presentation on strategic planning, and then I will share a case study from Stanby Bank in Zambia. And then after that, I will invite KCB. So KCB, you can start getting ready. Stanley Medini. Stanley will share with us the Women's KCB program. And then after that, we'll have SBM Bank, and Margaret Kimani will share and talk about their women's program. And then at the end, we will have APSA Bank, Susan Situma will share their program, the SHE program. And if Susan, because she was supposed to be at another place, if Susan is not there, then Daniel Munyamba will be sharing. So it will be very nice to hear from gentlemen, talking about the women's program. So let's move swiftly because of time. We don't have much time. So that's the learning objectives. So we can go to the next slide. So we've looked about building the business case. So that's the first part of building the business case. And then the second part now comes to the internal analysis, external analysis, and quantifying the opportunity. So internal analysis, the first thing is to actually develop the women's market data strategy. And like I was sharing with you with the case of the bank in Tanzania, before building a women's program, it's very important that there's a framework. The institution has the framework and the capacity to collect this data. Because not only does this data show the information, because data is black and white, yeah? So not only does it actually show the information, but it also provides a very good baseline in terms of where the bank, like the women's market, is going to start. So you establish a baseline, you say, okay, right now, sorry? Maybe 10% of the portfolio is women-owned businesses. So that's now establishing now the baseline. And I think even the baseline also goes back now to helping build the business case, because then you can sit with the bank and have an honest discussion and say, you're only at 10%. How do we push this, even if it means to another 10%, making it 20%? Then the external analysis now is understanding the size of the market. How big is the women's market, for example? In Kenya, it's huge. And also deciding what part or what type or target market that will be. And then the other thing will be define the key levers for potential growth. So now this will come into looking at some of the sectors like Anne had described before in her presentation. some of the agricultural value chains that we're looking at, which have huge potential. And then estimated expected share of the market. What share of the market are we looking at? The big banks obviously would have a larger share. Medium would also have a different share, but it's also good to see this is the expected share. And then now when we design the financial model is when we're looking at the key inputs that will go into that model. So then we develop a women's market data strategy. So we identify the needs and set definitions. We do the data planning, system and process, data capture, data analysis and use. So what are some of the do's and don'ts? So the first one is sex disaggregated data from day one of the program implementation. That's a do. Set minimum essential indicators to measure. Okay, so when you're looking at indicators, whether they're output indicators or outcome indicators or impact indicators, set a minimum of the essential. Don't try and do too much at the beginning. You can just set, really, what you think you can be able to do, and then establish the basement. So what are the don'ts? Don't ignore the need to get staff on board with the program. Make sure staff get fully on board, and not just the staff on the women's program, but all the staff in the bank. As much information that can be shared out to the whole the bank makes a huge difference, because everybody now knows exactly what the women's program is. Don't underestimate the time and effort required to update IT systems. That's a lot of work. Most of the banks will tell you they had to do some kind of overhaul, or will just maybe change 1 or 2 parameters so that they're able to collect this data. And don't forget that data is only as good as what you do with it. Thank you, George. So the internal analysis. So here you would perform a gap analysis. What data is currently being tracked and where are the gaps. Then you'd set definitions. How do you define a woman customer, for example? And here there's some of the examples is ownership, control, use of management. So this is when now you have people saying, okay, so who exactly is a woman customer? And you can use your own definitions. People define it based on ownership, others on control, others on use or management. But the general definition based on large organizations like the World Bank and IFC, they do 1% ownership, 20% ownership by women, and 30% of the board of directors. But generally they look at 50% owned, led, and managed by women. Thank you, George. And then when we look at the second part, now the data planning. So basically I'm just looking at the different ones and just giving them, going more in depth. So a sample, for example, of critical metrics that can be collected will be the number of men and women customers, the number of credit accounts, credit portfolio by sex, the number of savings accounts, total deposits by sex, non-performing loans by sex, and the percentage on staff and management that are women. So some of the banks that have actually done women's programs also look at internally how they are doing when it comes to women, and also externally. So it's really good when you're practicing what you preach. So you'll find like some of the banks like Stanby, Zambia, were also very keen internally when they look at their leadership of the women, the number of women in Exco, for example. So when they go out there and say that they're serving the women's markets, this is something they're actually practicing what they preach. Thank you, George. So we can go on to the next slide. This is just the different definitions that you can use when it comes to access, usage. And then now using this example of Stanbic Bank Zambia. So you can see they looked at the customers by gender and segment. And then these are the types of accounts they have. So they have the blue, silver, executive, private, and staff. And you can see the number of female customers was very low. And then when they looked at the bank balances by gender and segment, the female balances were quite high. So women and underserved are just 26.7% of the total customers in the markets. although we have fewer women customers, they hold higher bank balances, which is a really interesting observation, because that shows that those would probably be the larger corporates, but now how do they focus on that medium enterprises, or the famous missing middle that people talk about? And then 13% by number and 6% by value of NPLs. Thank you, George. And then here again, systems integration. And what they did here is they work closely with IT to adopt the process and the internal systems. So they repurposed the unused fields in the data management system to create new ones. They determined if they needed new systems. They modified the processes for classifying and verifying and monitoring sex disaggregated data. And then they also ensured that the information that is being collected is still valid on an ongoing basis. So it has to be updated as time goes by. And when initially with the product is called Anakazi banking, the Stanby system was not able to collect that data. So that's why they had to tweak their system to be able to configure and to collect that disaggregated data. Thank you, George. And then you can get the data, then there's also the data capture. And then this goes back now to what I was talking about the importance of establishing a baseline. That if there's anything you will remember today from this knowledge sharing session, is the baseline. That's the most important thing, because it's only from there that you can actually now show results and show whether you've been able to achieve your targets. And then you also need to plan for future data collection. And at the same time, you need to have the right documents. So for example, what Stanbic Bank was working with was the KYC documents. They were looking at the titles that they had in the bank, and they're also leveraging on the relationship management knowledge of customers, and also looking at what was feasible and not feasible for Zambia. Okay. And then again, understanding the data. So data use analysis. So when you mine and analyze and use the data, it'll help you make decisions much easier. And then extracting the data on a regular basis. So it's not just a one-off, you just don't do it once, but it's something that is part of the data that you collect when you're collecting any other businesses. Thank you, George. And then again here, understanding the opportunity. So this is how they managed to collect the data in terms of assets in Kwacha and deposits. This is the figures they had for both female and male. And that's just a graphical representation. And then from here, they were now able to look at individuals. What are they going to offer individuals? And what are they going to offer businesses? And these were based on various variables. They looked at the population, they looked at the demographics. They also looked at the trends in the markets. They looked at data quality when it comes to the individuals. And then when they're looking at the businesses, they looked at the number of women-owned businesses. Is there a market? What share of these women-owned businesses are part of the SMEs? What are the levels of growth? They looked at ownership definition. They looked at government programs that are existing in Zambia, which they can be part of. They looked also at the relevance of the sectors in the economy. And then also the issue of data also came in. Thank you, George. And then these are some of the statistics that they collected before they actually started the exercise. And they were able to establish that 51% of the population were women, and over 60% were formerly financially excluded. 2 in 5 women were using banking services, while 4 in 5 men were using banking services. So 40% of women are entrepreneurs, and most of them are in the informal sector. And 20% of the total food in Zambia is produced by women. And women in formal sector are earning a higher average monthly income than men, and financial inclusion targets from 38 to 70%. So this is now basically the groundwork that they did before developing the program. So then they had the global business case for targeting the women. They looked at the market share. They looked at high cross-selling and loyalty, which I talked about in the beginning. You know, if you're going to get them in, don't just give them a current account. You know, look at the savings accounts, look at the fixed deposits. Do we have education accounts for the children? Any retirement programs? You know, so there's a lot of cross-selling opportunities when it comes to women. And then women also have strong saving prosperity propensities. A bank I worked with in Malawi also realized that the women had a really strong, when it comes to savings, was very large. So they were able to, you know, develop a product where the savings were used as some form of security. So the women could actually borrow because they had quite substantial savings. And then changing this into a positive risk behavior, which is where now the information that I was talking about comes in. And you know, they understand the risk. And I think with the risk, once it's explained, and you know, then it ceases to be seen as risk. Thank you, George. So then what is the required investment? Because I think once we say that we want to do a women's markets program or a gender finance program, there really has to be an investment. And I liked what also Elizabeth was saying at the beginning, because this came from a lot of years of work, but then the buy-in was from senior level management, because once you have that buy-in, then it's much easier to actually get the women's programs going, because you have the required investment. And here we have to factor all the costs into the business case. So for example, who's the team that's going to be running the women's markets program? The people. We need to do some kind of market research, like the example I showed just from Stanby Bank, Zambia. We need to do marketing. People need to know about our products. This session today is an excellent marketing opportunity also for the banks, because they're meeting people, they're speaking to the women, they're speaking to the business advisory service providers. So looking for any kind of opportunities where you can market the program. Sponsorship and partnerships, this is also a really big thing, especially partnerships, because you find like now, even when you're working on the non-financial services, because banks mainly focus on finance, you find with the non-financial services, you will need to do it through partnerships. So whether you're doing any kind of training or any kind of mentoring, there are different foundations that focus on mentoring, like the Sherry Blair Foundation. They have a very good mentoring program for women, or even just internally with the successful women, you know, now working with the women that are coming up. That is also good. And then the non-financial services, and then also travel, because of the issue of going back and forth. Thank you, George. Next slide. And then designing the financial model. So here we're looking at key inputs, revenues, growth, scenarios, investments, and also the requirements. Next slide. And then this is just an example, again, of quantifying the opportunity. So when you look at the investment, when you're talking about the team and the people, how much are we talking about? And you can do it for each year, 2018 to 2020. This is just an example. So you look at the total investment, that's what the total investment is. And then now you look at the income. So how much are we making from individual accounts? How much are we making from the SME sector and the corporate? Then you look at the total income. And then that's when now you decide, what's the net present value, internal rate of return. And if it's less than that 36%, then it's a good investment to go. But this obviously depends on the bank and the different figures. So why did Stanby decide to pursue the women's market? It was for four main reasons. 5% lived above normal growth levels in revenue. They had a financial inclusion strategy target, 38 to 70% in 2022. There was the brand differentiator and reputational benefit. And there was also the stakeholder engagement and support, the Bank of Zambia. And that's their logo, Anakazi, and that's what they're doing for women. Okay, so I think now we can move on to, in the interest of time, we will now move on to the next, I'll just do a very short presentation on strategic planning. George, if you could just put up the one for strategic planning. And then we'll move on to the case studies.
I'm pulling it up. McKenna, maybe it's time you can just get maybe comments from the audience as I pull it up about what Zambia.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, please. I was going to hold the comments and questions from later, but let's hear some comments as we await for the last slide that I'm going to present today. Any comments, any feedbacks? Questions?
Feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and make a comment.
Okay.
McKenna, I was once a teacher, and one of the things that I understood from teaching, when after a lesson and there is no question from the students, then it's only two things can happen. Either they understood everything, or actually they didn't understand anything. So I don't know what is the case here. When you've
I know. I'm also thinking the same thing, George. I don't know whether I'm speaking too fast or these are things that they already know. But I am going to, when we finish the presentations, I'm going to open up at the end for questions, especially after the banks also do their presentation. Okay. So let me just take you quickly through strategic planning. This is something simple. I'm sure you all know what a strategy is. So what really I'm trying to, the main objective of this is to say that you need to be strategic when it comes to planning your women's program. So you need to make sure you have an integrated set of choices that are based on high quality data. Again, going back to data, and then acting on choices and position the firm as an industry so as to create sustainable advantage and also to get superior returns. And then now when we look at the strategic framework, and then here we're looking at answers in a series of strategic questions that will help the organization make a choice, yeah? And how we want to move from where will we play to how will we win, okay? So this is when now you do the whole industry analysis. How attractive is the industry? What does the industry look like? And then you move over to the customer value analysis. Who are the customers? Are they different customer segments? Then you look at the competition analysis. I'm sure Barclays did this a bit, APSA. I keep forgetting to call them APSA. As they were coming into the market, who are our primary competitors, which segments are they serving and how well. And then internal, you also need to do an internal capability, and ask yourselves as banks also, what areas are we good at? You know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If we're doing really well in this sector, then let's just see how we can design a women's markets program around that. You don't really need to now go and start a whole new program, but you have one that is that it's working well, and you know, why not just build on that. Thank you, George. And then now the 5 forces framework. I'm sure most of you know about this, the industry and competitor analysis. Again, here you're looking at the threats to new entries, bargaining power of the buyers, bargaining power of the suppliers. And the whole idea about these 5 forces in the industry is to tell us how attractive our industry is to be and what present conditions are like. Okay, go move on to the next one. Again, this is just the 5 forces again, just now presented in a different way. We can move to the next slide also. And then now, this is where now you look at the capabilities and what must be in place to win. So what capabilities, skills, and resources do we need to serve our women's customers? What capabilities do we have now? And what needs to be built? And how do our capabilities stack up against our competitors? And how good are we at change and innovation? Okay, can move on. And then this is just basically the strategic planning and the strategic choice cascading. So moving all the way from what are our goals and aspirations, where will we play, how will we win in the chosen markets, what capabilities must be in place to win, and what management systems are required. Okay. And then that's just the last slide. Basically, once you've done your industry analysis, your customer value analysis, your competitor analysis, and then now you can decide on how you're going to move and how you're going to follow up on your strategy implementation. Excellent. So that's the last slide I have today in terms of the frameworks and what needs to be done. I have a lot more information, but in the interest of time, yeah, we're already at 11:21. So I'll quickly take you through the case study of Stanby, Zambia. George, if you can just pick that up for me quickly. And then after that, I will hand over to Stanley at KCB. Stanley, you have your presentation ready. And then Margaret also from SPM. And then we'll do ABSA. So I think that'll give us a good time, because we'd like to wrap up the session just in time for lunch. So maybe George, you could put up for me the Stanby case study, Zambia.
It's coming up. It's coming up in a second.
Thank you. And I hope you're keeping all your questions so that we can have a good Q&A session at the end. Okay, so this is the case study of Stanby Bank Zambia. And they called their program Anakazi Women's Market Program. Anakazi, I believe, stands for women something, I can't quite remember. But I was telling them Anakazi for here would be defined as Kazi for women. But that's how the program, that's how it looks like on the website. So, you know, they actually did a separate page on their main website. And they had a page specific for women. So they had, you know, good visuals where you see the progressive woman with the mobile phone. Then you can find out what the products and services are. Thank you, George. And then they also looked at the Zambian government, and the Zambian government had joined with 30 countries to launch this financial inclusion partnership with the World Bank Group. So this was a big partnership that the World Bank was trying to do with a number of countries in Africa on financial inclusion. So they were partnering with banks. And this made a lot of sense because when you're talking about financial inclusion, we talk also a lot about women because we find that women are the ones who are most financially included. And then only 2 out of 5 women in the urban population were using the banking services. So again, there was a gender gap in financial inclusion. And this was based on both formal and informal financial services. So they were looking at both formal and informal. Thank you, George. The opportunities, Zambia, 51% were women, 67% of the women are formally excluded. I think I shared this slide before. And women were more likely to use informal financial services and formal services. So that's the opportunity that they saw. The next slide. So they did the whole thing of focus group discussions, talking to women clients who are bank clients, talking to women clients who are potential clients, and talking to women who are not even considering joining their bank. So they surveyed 334 people, and they had focus group discussions, and these are the questions they would ask. How important is price to you, for example? What is your preferred method of banking? What is the main disadvantage of online banking? So they held a number of focus groups. And this approach is really, really important because it's actually listening to what the women want, as opposed to just developing something and then pushing it to the women. So this is a demand-driven approach because they would actually listen very carefully to what the women want. And then from there, they would go and design the products. Thank you, George. So they did a customer value proposition, and their customer value proposition was financial and non-financial offering. So for access to finance, they had access to financial support. They had access to savings. They also did access to insurance, which is quite a thing to go for. And then they had discounts and benefits through various partners across health, lifestyle, entertainment, and security sectors. Again, the issue of security with the women, that's also something that came up during the focus groups. They don't feel secure sometimes when they're going home in the evenings. What kind of products can they get around that? Or what partnerships can they do with security companies? And then access to all regular banking products. And then they said, okay, we're not just going to do financial products, we're going to do non-financial offering. So they have the access to knowledge, and they use their Anakazi Women's website, access to quarterly Anakazi events. They have a mentoring program which I've been part of, which is really good and very structured and systematic. And they do a lot of training on entrepreneurship and capacity building. They have what they call business power session, and this is where they have the top business women who come and speak to the women who are more growth oriented, and they even have access to legal advice and support. Access to banking, they have access to service excellence. They focus on alternative delivery channels. They have smart ATMs in a number of locations, and they have internet banking and mobile banking. And then they also have access to a manager when it looks at Anakazi banking. So they understand the opportunity. They understood what women want. The women want access to finance. The women want access to knowledge, and the women want access to convenient banking. And again, these are some of the results. Post-launch, the female accounts increased by 42%. In 2016, it was by 20%, and the male also increased by 28% and by 33%. Okay, next one. And then these are the partnerships that, they established a brand, and their brand is the Bank of Choice of Employer of Choice of Women. So it's a bank of choice, and it's also an employer of choice. So they were looking both externally and internally. So they want to be the employer of choice for women, and they also want to be a bank of choice. And then they had key strategic differentiators in comparison to other banks. And then they have already had local and regional and international recognition. They've got partnerships with the Global Banking Alliance for Women, the one I was telling you about, New Faces and New Voices, which is an initiative from Gracia Michelle Foundation, which is on women in finance. And then AWEP, which is the African Women's Entrepreneurship Program. So they've not just done it on their own, but they've done it through the different partnerships. So with that, I will now hand over to Stanley. Stanley, you have your presentation on your side, so you can take us through what you're doing at KCB. Are you there, Stanley? No?
Maybe we can maybe move to another bank as Stanley gets ready. Maybe he's having an issue.
Could we move to maybe Margaret? Margaret, are you ready? On
That's
SPM
fine.
Bank?
That's okay, McKenna. Do you have the video ready?
Yes, we have the video ready. So
okay, we could play that.
Yeah, one second. We are putting it up. Carol, if you can play the video, please, because that is the presentation from Margaret. Thank you. Carol, you're not sharing the audio. We can't get the audio from our end.
Yes, the volume. All right.
We still can't get the audio from our end. Let me maybe try sharing on my end and see whether we can get the audio. Aha, there you go. Start from beginning, please.
I have an online company that deals with cushions. I only deal with cushions. Mainly we fall under home decor. The session was so amazing. I got so much exposure. The experience with SBM Bank so far has been good. It's because of them that we're here today. I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
Co-founder and content creator at the Nifty Works Plus Limited. We're in the space of creating stories for corporates, NGOs, broadcasters. My journey with She Trades has been over 3.5 years. I connected with them in 2017, and they've walked the journey with us over these years. My experience with SBM Bank has been great. We connected with them through She Trades. I pitched our business, and they liked our work. So I would say the process has been great and successful, and also their banking system is very supportive.
I run a business by the name of Malkia Gifts and Interiors. We are based in Nakuru. We offer space for artisans to exhibit their goods. The experience was very good. I learned that there are very many things that we can do instead of complaining that there's nothing to do. With SPM, what experience I've got is the help that you usually get, like now setting up this pop-up shop. pop-up. You've learned you've met with other players in the industry. You've also managed to network. I'm in charge of the consumer bank. So the consumer bank is a bank that is responsible for the retail side of customers. Besides that, we also have centers of excellence. So we have women banking, youth banking, diaspora banking, all as part of consumer banking. So this session was made to facilitate women in business, women in trade, in partnership with She Trades. So we have a very active women program. And the reason of having this women market program is that we saw the need to empower, educate, and protect the overall financial status of the woman because of the role they play in society.
I'm the national coordinator for the She Trades in the Commonwealth project in Kenya. And the She Trades in the Commonwealth project is running in 4 countries. That's Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, and Bangladesh. These are Commonwealth nations. It's funded by UK Aid to help women, empower women in 4 sectors: agribusiness, textile and apparel and handicrafts. That's the product range. And then the services range: ICT, women in ICT, and BPO, which is business process outsourcing. And
So good morning, everyone. I feel that it's been very quiet in here. And so I'm Margaret Kimani. I'm joined, by the way, with a lot of my colleagues drawn from different departments. And you'll allow me because McKenna, I don't know if, I don't even think the 6 minutes would be enough for a presentation because we've done a lot for the Women Markets Program. So I don't know if I can speak or skim through some of the slides because you see, for us, I think it's important that I mention this. For us, we are not only looking at the women in business, we are not only looking for at the women entrepreneurs, the business people. We are also looking internally what we do for the women. And I'm a product of that empowerment. And so many of our colleagues joined here. We also look at the community. And that's why at some point in 2018, we joined to become UN Women signatories. So I don't know if, George, do you allow? I'll skim through very few slides. Today, I didn't want to talk so much about our CVP because I love what Elizabeth said and my other colleagues, including yourself, McKenna. I think you've done a good justice showcasing some of the good case studies. And I see a lot of similarities with us and other banks, what other banks are doing, which is amazing. Again, I want to also mention that the Beauty with Women Markets program, I think the need is so big that one bank cannot do it all. So whenever we see other banks following our footsteps and rolling out women market programs, I think for us, we clap all the way to the bank because there's so many women underserved in the country. So if you allow me to share, I like showcasing.
Yeah, if I can just come in, Margaret, thank you. Thank you for that. And also thank you for sharing that excellent video. I think in terms of time, we have until, we can give you a couple more minutes because we really want to hear what it is you're doing in those 3 different aspects. So yes, please go ahead.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I can share screen. There you go. I'll go to the beginning. You can tell me when you see it because I can't see myself actually.
It's here, yeah. You can just do presentation mode.
All right. There you go. Oops. Guess sorry. 1 second. Let me just, 1 minute. Technology has its own special way of doing.
Don't worry, just take your
time. Can
time.
you see it now? All right, cool. I guess now you can see, right?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Excellent. So as you were presenting Mwiti, I was just smiling when I saw that we didn't know that there's another bank that is thinking like ours, Stanby, Zambia. So for us, our theme is very simple and very clear that we want to be employer of choice for women of influence. So internally, we believe that the empowerment we've been able to give our internal women who work for us, which the statistics are huge because majority of our, and this was not by design, by the way, majority of our staff, highest percentage is actually women. And I guess they're attracted by our brand and what we do. We also pride ourselves, so for the women entrepreneurs, we want them to come to us because we are the international bank of choice for women. And I'll show you in a minute how we do. I think McKenna, for the interest of, a lot of people don't know what SBM. In fact, I know in the past we've been called many things, CBM, SBM. So you will allow me to just for 1 second tell you about where we come from. So we are a state-owned bank back in Mauritius, listed in the stock exchange. And it's important for people to know that we are in India, in Madagascar. Kenya, of course, is our African hub. And we are that listed bank. So in terms of stability, corporate governance, back in Mauritius, where we came from, obviously, we engage a lot in banking. Of course, just like any other ordinary commercial bank, we are huge on banking, but you will realize that for us, even the reason we have Women Market Program is because we are huge on non-banking financial services and investments, non-financial investments. I think it's important for people, I don't know where different people are logged in from. It will be important to know that we have 52 branches in Kenya so that you feel the comfort. We are a relationship bank. For us, it's very important. Women, especially for women, I can tell you I'm one of those. We like the relationship. We love that we can walk into Kisumu branch and be served there as a woman and ask all your questions and interact. So very important. At the end of the day, the reason we have, I'll not dwell into this, but for us, it's very important that customer comes first, and especially the women. So all these are our policies and our core values. And of course, we exist to make a difference in this part of the region. Now, as I come to the women banking pillar, for us, we look at a woman holistically, yeah? You realize that there are those career women who actually drop off and join the entrepreneurship world. And how we deliver, for us, we deliver the financial services, but on the non-financial pillars, we believe that empowerment comes first. So when Mwiti, when McKenna, when we made contact, we were very excited because anybody who speaks women economic empowerment, we are on board. And of course, for us, the biggest pillar that we actually have been playing for the last 3 years that we've existed is that we believe that the women need to be educated. I mean, the statistics, I don't want to repeat the statistics, but McKenna, I've done a very serious case study, and this is true. We did a lot of research, and the women were asking for education. We engaged with women actually December of 2018, all the way from November. We spent like 3 months, interacting different branches, going to even our partner organizations. And women were asking for educate, and what we do actually, every Thursday we have a session where we have conversations with women. We walk through them different topics. And of course, the last one, you cannot educate and empower without protecting what this woman they've worked so hard to preserve. So we grow and preserve what they have, whatever they have accumulated. As you can see here, we keep saying that for us, a woman is a journey through life. For women, there's family, career, business, friends, leisure, all these are interconnected. So at every stage of the women's life, we make sure that we have solutions that are actually catering for that. This, as you can see, we don't do it alone. For us, we do it through partnerships, and one of our biggest one, because we believe that as an international bank of choice, we are connecting women. We've been doing it for a while. And I like the pictorial evidence because it speaks volumes. For us, we believe that before a woman can go into the international trade scene, they have to be capable of actually, trading locally. So we've been working with one of our, partners at the International Trade Center. And let me tell you guys, because McKenna, you've spoken about data. For us, we actually also track. Of course, initially when we started, we are tracking manually, but also technology comes in handy, to empower us to track. So even whenever we do any sessions with women, we make sure that we are tracking and seeing what is the progress and what was the achievement, and why actually in the first place, what is the impact on these women. Now, I think I need to stop here. Like at the beginning, I said, for us, the women program market program would never be possible if we were not empowering the women internally. I know, I'm not sure who from, we have a lot of members from SBM joined in from different levels, but I think it's important for us, the first step of doing the women empowerment was actually becoming women, UN women signatories, yeah? We did it in December. And as you can see here, I'll not go through the whole slide. It started for us, it's very important that not only do we have 61% of, I think we are one of the largest with the female staff count, but not only that, for us, we count that how many of these 61% of women are sitting in senior management representation, yeah? And we have over 30%. I know the list has been growing. We have quite a few vice presidents who are female. And for us, it's a very big deal. Every year, we also track to see what is the progress, which women are moving up the ladder. Now, back to the Women Markets Program, which obviously is both internal and external. I mentioned that we are keen on obviously being a critical player in the Kenyan economy, and obviously putting women at the center of banking, not only internally, but also externally. Allow me to also, as I close on this slide, for us, gender equality is not a thing, it's not the right, it's no longer a good thing to have. For us, gender equality means that we have it in the bank, at the workplace at SBM, and then at the marketplace where we are serving our SMEs, business owners, and of course at the community. And I remember at the beginning, I'm trying not to put so much of our CVP here, because we are doing a revamp of the solution, and we'll be launching. Actually, you guys should be looking out. So you can see that strategically have not included a lot. But I mentioned that at the end of the day, we target career women. We actually have very big partnerships with corporates that bank these women. I'll tell you, from hospitals to the agribusiness to any sector you can talk about. And what we do is that we take care of women, career women. That is one pillar. The other target market that we work with is obviously women entrepreneurs, which today's session was a very big deal for us. When we do appreciate the fact that we can interact with these women live. And then of course, there is the community. You cannot do anything as a bank. For us, we believe that in all these 52 branches where we are, it's important that we are serving the women there, including championing gender equality and advocacy. McKenna, I know in your slides, sorry, I did not see you talking about, you can see what Corona has done. There's been a lot of things that even as a bank, we are rechanging. And that's why a couple of years, last year, we started a program called What Women Want. We are doing it, we've been doing it every Thursday, we air it live on Facebook, Facebook. And why do we do it? Because you realize gender violence is real. Actually, some of our customers are affected, as you know, and for us as a bank, we cannot, other than just offering the financial, we cannot afford to not talk about it. These are issues that are affecting our women. And how can a woman who had a whole business, who has been affected by gender violence, they are going back to zero, as in they're almost shutting down their companies. So we really champion the 7 pillars of UN Women, the guidelines given by the UN global standards. And like I said, it's very important for us. Again, McKenna, you've actually covered a lot of the things I wanted to say, but as you can see, there's no bank, I don't think there's any bank that can do women entrepreneurship, women program without partnerships, and we are not exceptional. So, we are not an exception. So we partnered with many organizations. This has been, a journey. It's not like we just partner today and it ends there. McKenna, I think you mentioned GBA. They have rebranded. I hope you're aware they've rebranded to FAO, Financial Alliance for Women. And we've done a lot. We actually gather a lot of data from them. We work together. We like a benchmarking to see what are other banks that are doing it better, even globally. And as you can see for us, we have three segments where we partner. We partner from the financial access, as you can see. We also do knowledge and networking partners, the likes of AWEB, SheTrades, and there's also brand building partners. And as you can see, and I'm very happy that today we are joined by other banks. We've worked very well with very many other banks, locally and internationally. You can see we run, there's an initiative called Fashionomics Africa, run by the African Development Bank. And this one for us, we actually support women in fashion. And as you can see, this is a very many billion-dollar industry that a lot of times these creatives are not serviced and they are underserved by banks. So I'll continue. UN Women, of course, I mentioned. Future Females, we do it online. And this one particularly is for young entrepreneurs straight from college who are not looking to be employed like Maggie and McKenna, but who are looking to be future, entrepreneurs. I think you'll allow me, because today I did not want to dwell so much on, on our CVP, because I think it speaks volumes about what we do. I wanted to mention some of the things we've been able to do. And before I get out of this slide, last year, we started championing procurement diversity. And in this procurement diversity, what we are doing is that we are saying, we did a baseline as a bank, and we started saying, as a bank, what amount of procurement is going for women? Remember, I mentioned at the beginning, you see, women cannot go into international markets if locally we are not giving them opportunities. So charity starts at home. So for us, we started as a bank. We advocate companies that actually, follow AGPO. I don't know how many of you know about AGPO. The government has a requirement to obviously set 30% of its procurement to women. And this is a way for women to diversify. And the reason we actually looked into it is because you realize women's businesses were affected, and especially in certain sectors. So we were looking to see how can women diversify and still thrive during the coronavirus, and still make money, and still hold their businesses to profitable and thrive. Profitable, still stay profitable. So procurement diversity has become a very big deal for us. And there are many other things we've done. On the financial aspect, allow me to mention that we've actually also allowed, remember collateral, McKenna, you mentioned, collateral is a very big challenge for women. Traditionally, women do not, and even when they have the title, it's jointly owned. And remember, it also speaks to the data disaggregation. You find that traditionally before, banks were not actually tracking which one is women, which one was, So what we've done on the financial aspect is that we've opened unsecured lending for women to a tune of 5 million shillings. And also we are encouraging women to save. We've recently launched a 6% earning in a savings account. I know many of you have seen the billboards. It's called a platinum saver, and women are saving towards whether it's business expansion, even individually for their own families. Some of the awards, I think it's important. I like showcasing what we've done as opposed, because I can speak till the cows come home, but I think it also speaks volumes of what the industry thinks of us. So as you can see, before Corona happened, we were voted the most supportive bank for women under Financial Inclusion Awards. For us, financial inclusion, actually catering for women needs speaks directly to our financial inclusion agenda. As you can see here, we are also a very, sustainability for us means a lot. And remember, you cannot empower the women who are older. What about you start empowering them when they're young in high school? And as you can see, we've been able to partner with the likes of Bitco. Allow me to mention that in the agribusiness space, we've been very lucky as a bank because we have an agribusiness space sector, just the same way we have this sector for women banking. We've been able to have contract farming for some of the, women in the country, and they've been able to secure, selling opportunity to some of the local companies like Bitco. And here what we were saying is that we need to actually keep planting the trees. She trades, I think you've seen the video for yourself. I keep saying that even creating markets ourselves for these women is a very big deal. And out of such an event, for us, what it does is that the mentorship happens, the coaching happens, the networking happens. So really you're killing all the stones, you know, all the birds with one stone. And as you can see this lady on the left, this is a lady who, if you spoke to her, this is some of this, you know, the merchandise she was showcasing. It's things that actually she's been able, out of this pop-up market, she's been able to get very huge deals from New York and other markets. It's opened so many doors, including even Mauritius. That's why we included our board to come attend the session. This is, for me, I like talking about practical things we've done. This was in Ethiopia. The lady here with me on the left is bee, she keeps bee. She's actually in farming. And I think, you know, Anne presented at the beginning, and I was very excited, and Grace, when we were talking about, this is a lady who actually has beekeeping, and she's a farmer. She has many segments of the farming she's doing. But in her beekeeping industry, guess what? Out of this, you know, expo we did, we actually brought so many women, as you can see here, from different counties. We had a lady who is exporting purple tea. We had some women from Machakos County, some of them here. And of course, we came with our partners. But why I like this slide every day for me, it's very important that we actually truly, what we say is what we actually do. And out of this session, these women have been exporting even during Corona. In fact, some of them have expanded their businesses and they're still exporting their merchandise. You know, again, I mentioned about African development. These are women in fashion. And you can imagine some of these are the biggest names you hear in this country. And you see a lot of times what happens is that women are doing business separately without knowing that, for example, I could collaborate with Muiti, who is still in my industry, and do bigger business. And this is the type of you know, culture we are trying to also train women in our education pillar. Why can't the women come together and be, you know, like the way men actually do business? So we, you know, this is an example of women when we come together. There's a lot that we can do. And as you can see, we brought like the likes of Facebook to also train them on e-commerce. Little did we know after this session that COVID was coming and women needed to be online. You know, and also we brought the mask line and, you know, shipping lines who actually facilitate their shipments. Again, when before COVID happened, so some of you might not know that SBM, we have 5 SME hubs in the country. They are distributed within the region. And what we used to do before COVID is that we call these women once a week. We usually have these sessions where we are training them topics that they have requested. For example, legal, compliance, tax, how do you file your taxes? And you can see women also get to interact with each other. And this actually was facilitated by the fact that the women were asking for this kind of services. Again, when you go to the UN women signatories, this is actually principle number 4. We actually adhere, we endeavor to actually promote education and professional development for women, both in business and in corporate. I spoke about, it's one thing to, as a bank to do things here in Nairobi, but it's very important for us to reach out to the women in the rural areas. So we've been very lucky to work with the county government, courtesy of the First Ladies. One of my favorite First Lady is the Kajiado County First Lady, because she really has the heart of the women. And this particular time, unfortunately, also we didn't know COVID was hitting. We partnered with Nairobi Stock Exchange, and we were telling Kajiado women, yes, even you guys, regardless of your culture, you can invest in the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Secondly, let's ring the gender bell to actually promote some of the gender inequality practices that are happening in that county. The list goes on and on and on. You know, I can go on and on. This is a show we started in April 2020. Some of you have watched it, and if you've not watched it, especially if you're in business, we talk about everything from mental health. We talk about businesses. We talk about, you know, we bring women who have done businesses just to motivate and mentor women, especially during this COVID. As you can see, we actually work, with COVID, we've not stopped working. We've not stopped mentoring and impacting women, capacity building for women. So we quickly jumped online. And we've been very lucky to have many partners, including the likes of Kenya Bankers Association. We talk about different topics. Every month we have a different topic. And these topics are actually on demand driven by what the customers request, our entrepreneurs. This will be my last slide, but this is also to show the power of us as a bank when we actually say that we impact entrepreneurs. I think Passion for Profit is an example of one of those entrepreneurs. So as a bank, we believe that our core banking business is obviously banking, yeah, as much as we offer the non-financial services. So what we decided at some point is that why don't we empower our women to actually be training? And these are some of the sessions we run every Thursday. I know Abdia might be in the call. We run these sessions every Thursday with the SFA. They're called Passion for Profit. And this is for us everyday way of impacting women by giving them the business and actually showcasing what they're doing. We have many things we can talk about. I remember speaking, and this will be obviously my last slide. I remember speaking about impacting women in business. When we opened our procurement, and I love the slide, the last thing you've spoken about data. When we opened our procurement, obviously our procurement was not automated. We had to automate it as a bank. And as you can see, this is just one of the many examples that of women who have actually been able to procure with us as a bank. This was not happening before because probably we were not tracking before. When we did the baseline, we realized that yes, a very small percentage was going to women. We have a woman in IT who is actually providing some of the system upgrade, solutions, and the list goes on and on and on. But I think when the story comes from a woman who is doing business, it's actually even stronger. And the last thing I want to talk about is kindly allow me that women in the call, I think you need to be aware that the bank has been restructuring loans. For those of us who might have facilities, we did that. We've been doing that, actually restructuring loans for sectors that are hit by COVID. I mentioned about contract farming. I know this is a segment that is keen to USAID, the KIM, the KIM, initiative. And supply diversity for us remains to be a very big deal. And we continue to champion it. So last year, we were blessed to actually partner with Safaricom. I think some of you might know that Safaricom usually have a club called Women in Business. And what we did with them is we realized some of the women who were listed, listed in their procurement and pre-qualified were not able to get opportunity with Safaricom. Yeah. And what we did is that we partnered with them, and the conversations had started way before Bob Collymore, even the late Bob Collymore, passed on. And it's so good to see that even within ourselves, we are able to actually partner and collaborate and actually do bigger business. So what happened? They gave us their list, and the women were actually able to actually, apply with our SBM portal. And guess what? Out of all those, I think it was about 200 and something, about 11 of them got an opportunity to procure with us. And for me, and I think McKenna, what you've said as I wind up, I think tracking is very powerful. Yeah, you can imagine for us, 11 might seem a very small number, but guess what? For us, we track everything to see that, are we moving, are we moving? Because it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another to make it happen. And so there are many things on the women entrepreneurship, the SMEs in this forum we can do together. And we want to welcome you. We tried not to specifically showcase the products because as a bank, of course, we have huge products. We have many solutions. But for us, we actually believe that providing a solution for the customer at the end of the day is the bottom line of why we exist. So allow me to stop there. And because of time, but we can engage us. I'll drop my emails here, and I know we'll have another session after this.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Margaret. That was an amazing presentation. Well done. And and that's why I like these kind of sessions, because I for a fact did not know how much you're doing at SPM. I knew you had a product for women, but This is the first time I'm hearing about We Online, the procurement diversity, which is a fantastic idea, and secured lending, because that's always an issue. So women can actually come and get money from you as a bank and without collateral. And of course, the Platinum Saver for me is just amazing. So thank you. Thank you so much, Margaret. Like you said, we will be in touch. The whole idea was for our women, what are they called? The business advisory service providers, to know the exact products that you are offering. And I'm sure you're going to share your presentation to me so that I can also share it with them, so that they can know exactly what SVM is doing. So that's fantastic. Great job. Well done. Keep it up. And we will definitely be in touch. And then with that now, I will move on to the next presenter because of time. I don't know whether Stanley, are you ready for us yet? I know you are supposed to be at the end of the program, so maybe that's why. Are you there, Stanley? If not, we shall move to Absa. Susan, Daniel.
Thanks, McKenna. I think we are happy to share what we have as Absa.
Very good.
Good afternoon, partner banks. I think McKenna called them BSAPs. We are happy to share what we are doing with the women. For us, it's a journey that we started. I think we didn't just start. We've been at this journey for, like Elizabeth was speaking earlier, for over 40 years, just internally and now outwardly. Outwardly, I believe for the last 6 years, we've been very intentional about the milestones around women and what we do with them. And I think that is what has even informed what we now have as a proposition that we launched 2 weeks ago that is looking to serve the women. Just from the stories that we've had with them, walking with them, them going and coming back and telling, and us giving them funding and realizing that, hey, probably it wasn't funding that they needed something else. And therefore, based on that, we then said, I think we need to have a conversation that is more than just finance with women, that helps us make sure that even as we fund, we are funding a business that's going to be sustainable, and also a business that's going to live beyond the 5 years that they normally would say that a business would not survive. And also with COVID, what we've realized is that women businesses have been affected more. I think that is a statistic we can also confirm from our own internal review that has then caused us to think, how do we serve women differently? And I think for us, it's an intentional journey that we are then walking with the women, based on where the challenges we've understood from them, and then coming out to actually give a holistic proposition. So our proposition for women has 4 pillars attached to it. So there is the access to finance pillar, which is ideally for banks, our bread and butter. We know how to do this very well. And we continue to support women with unsecured lending up to 5 years that they can be able to access. And we found that already some of the women are very excited about this and have been we have success stories of the women that have been able to access this funding and are paying back, because we've also found that women are better payers when it comes to doing their repayments. We've attached a gold credit card just to support women get 50 days credit on that credit card, and also attached lifestyle benefits to the credit card that they're able to access. And they're able to access this from day one of opening the She Business account with us that we launched 2 weeks ago. We have risk sharing partners, and we are literally working on increasing the risk sharing partners that we have on the proposition so that we can give better access to women. And then we've negotiated with insurance partners for packages, whether it's to do with wellness, whether it's to do with the insurable risks for business, which is an area where we found a gap when it comes to women understanding how do they protect this legacy that they're building so hard, you know? So that area is an area where we are also looking to see how do we develop it. And we already have packages. So if they come through to us, they'll be able to access some of the information we have and the packages that we've bundled together for insurance for them. At the same time, under access to finance, of course, we've attached a 60 days grace period to the facilities that we are supporting women with. And we've also dropped our number of years in business to make sure that we can meet women based on where they are when they're joining us. Under access to markets, we have different partners that we are working with, also corporates in our value chain that we are working with to give opportunities for women in their supply chain and also within our ABSA sourcing supply chain. I think similar to what I've had SBM talked about, we're also very intentional. We've said that any contracts for a woman in business who's sourcing, we will automatically renew that contract as long as you're performing. So in that respect, we've made some commitments as well to just see that we increase the number of women in business that are suppliers in our supply chain. And we're also taking them through training for them to be able to understand better about the, supply performance and how they need to get better. But the other thing we've attached to that is we fund our own suppliers so that then they can be able to get the right working capital to do the job. The other pillar that I think to me has been the most important every time we've worked with women. Number one, we found that even as we ran our business club, which we've run for over 10 years, women were always the more active participants. And also when it came to mentorship and coaching sessions, which were smaller groups, women were the most as well. So we found that it's a key pillar for us where we are then looking at making it a core for this program, where monthly we would run mentorship and coaching sessions with partners and also introduce them to third parties that can help them in whether it's with strategy or HR, an area that they're struggling with in their business. The last pillar is the access to information, which is also another area where we find women have a gap, just understanding what is available for them out there. I mean, we've seen women who are listed in CRB, they're wondering how do they get out? So within our proposition, we're then saying we're going to give a lot more information to women. And with this proposition, it means that if you go to any of our branch network, that conversation with women is going to be more a relationship-driven conversation, not a conversation that just says, I came for 2 million and I need to just give you 2 million. I think it's going to be a conversation where we're asking a lot more information from you to understand what do you want to do with the 2 million shillings? How else can we fund that 2 million shillings? Can we give it as an LPO instead of a loan? Because I think traditionally you'll find SMEs will come and say, I want a loan, you know, and probably that's not what they need. So under that pillar, we have online seminars that we shall run. You'll see us making announcements with some partner corporates around some bespoke training that we are taking the women through based on the needs that they have shared with us. And therefore that's literally what is helping us find a way to get things done, because that's Africanacity for us. We find women where they are and we try and work with them to see how do we get them to where they need to get to, because that's what they have asked us. They've asked us to work the journey with them. So we're also doing some business planning with the women who are joining the proposition to help us work with them and be able to see how they're growing and what's the impact they're having in the communities where they're serving. So from a product perspective, I think we've differentiated the business account for the women. They told us they want more. So we've given them a 1% cashback as long as they maintain an average balance of 300,000 in their accounts, and attached all the other benefits, including an ABSA junior savings account where we are paying an interest rate of 7%. Asset finance, we've got current dealer programs, and we do know women would buy specialized equipment. So under the unsecured product, we are not going to ask them for additional collateral because we understand them. So we've sort of worked to see what are the limits based on where the woman is, so that then we don't have to ask for too much collateral, which we have found is a barrier to their funding. And I think I've talked a lot about the insurance pillar. I think we attach this to our platforms that we currently have, whether it's for internet banking, mobile banking, where we are providing the convenience that the women need for them to continue to transact. We do know a lot of women are now online working on their businesses, and therefore we have those capabilities that we've also attached to the proposition. So they can do their tax payments, their custom payments, they can do their M-Pesa to bank to M-Pesa for free. So we've attached all the benefits. But I think for us, what's really exciting is the non-financial piece, which I think is what will push the needle for a lot of the women based on what we have seen through our experience. So I'll keep it short and happy to end there and listen to any feedback that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. And I know you guys are the latest kids on the block, but yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. And it's interesting to hear that it's been a journey for Barclays, APSA, almost 40 years before coming to realize that you need to have a special focus on women. So I think it's excellent that you're in the market. Some of the products that you presented are also very relevant, because I also hear a lot from the women entrepreneurs on this side. The banks only want collateral. So we need to start demystifying this whole collateral thing and tell the women that no, actually, the banks do offer, they have products for women. The whole asset financing is also another good area that you've brought about. And of course, the business insurance, which is something that I'm really liking in this market. So thank you so much for that, Susan. The conversations will continue. This is just the introduction. So we're really going to be in the future working very closely with you and your team. So we thank you for making that presentation. Now, KCB, have we been able to find Stanley? Or is there anybody on the call from KCB? Anne and Gila, I can see your hand raised up. Do you want to say something?
Stanley's on the call.
Okay, is he ready with his presentation?
Yes, he is. Give him a minute or so.
Okay.
Thank you so much, McKenna, and the rest of the team here. So for KCB, I think I'll keep it brief, but for us also, as a bank, it has been a journey, again, for many, many years. But we've come to realize that this is really a market that everyone is eyeing. So we started our journey, now being specific for the women, I think 5 years ago, 2016, thereabout. And for us, what we want to do actually is to uplift the women-owned businesses or the women-led businesses, so that we speak the language that they really told us. So we've been getting their survey, their feedback through a survey, and they've told us exactly how they would want to work this journey with us. So a bigger space for us is to look at them in an unsecured space. So what we do for them is give them a lot of unsecured SMEs, because most of them have challenges with the collateral. So move to the next page. So key milestones with our partners. We started with Women World Banking. When we started this journey, 2016, I think until 2019. And what we do with our partners is majorly capacity building, a lot of trainings, and we train them on specific tailored trainings, which actually reflects on what they do. We just don't train them for the sake of probably training them, but we train them on what specifically they do. So we brought in our partners who have really supported us in this space. Currently, we're working with IFC. You can see from that screen, we have been able to conduct 66 workshops across our network for women only, specifically for women. We've done a lot of online since the pandemic challenge came in. So in total, we've trained over 3,000. This number I'm showing you is as at December last year. And we intend to really up this space. What they said is that they really wanted the non-financial space more strongly, to come out more strongly. And you can see from the outcomes here, when we started this proposition, we've been able to disburse up to 24 billion in loans, the value of the loans. Most of this is unsecured. And when we started this journey, our women to men ratio loan was 9%. But as of December last year, you can see that the figure is up. 22% is what we have now in our loan men ratio portfolio. You can see a good story again on the delinquent rates. They are doing quite well. So that's why we are coming out very strongly in the unsecured space. New accounts, I think again that is at December, 170K, but the number is moving up. This an area again, look at the deposits, they have been able to give us 15 billion. And we can say generally, what they told us, we've been able to deliver, they're happy from that net promoter score. So it's a space we really, we want really to emphasize and put the bank as a market leader. So beside all this, what we also do, we've trained, I think, 39 women who've been mentored under the Women in Leadership program. So this is an internal program where we are saying the management and the team, the women in the bank get to compete with the men, and then they get to pick those positions. So 50-50, I think, is where the bank was wanted to be. Now we have other programs for the bank under the KCB Foundation. You can see, which covers the youth. That is apart from the women. So generally, I think this is the last slide, but KCB is really coming out very strongly on the women. With pillars, if I can mention as financial pillar, is not so much critical for us. But what is very strong for us is the non-financial pillar, where we really want to train them, to really give them a lot of trainings, what they want, and then from there now they can be able to come for the financial services, which we've really again done so well from the outcome I've shared. So thank you, McKenna, and again thanks. Apologies for a lot of problems this morning from the system. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Stanley. And no need to apologize. We understand how sometimes technology can be a challenge. But thank you so much for being able to give us that presentation. It was a short presentation, but a very sweet presentation. So well done, Stanley. And I must really congratulate you on what KCB is doing. And every time when I listen to presentations from KCB, because we had your director Anastasia do speak to us also on International Women's Day. And I look at some of these figures and I can't get my head, I can't get my head around them. When you talk about, disbursed almost 24.3 billion and 22% of those are going to women. I mean, this is fantastic. And then, of course, the one that brings the most joy to my heart is the 3.2% of non-performing loan, which is really low. So it proves the point that women actually do repay their loans. And this is the kind of statistics. Yeah, so
it's gone more lower. It's around 2% currently.
2%. 2%, exactly.
Yeah,
it's not, yeah, it's 2%, which for me is really fantastic. It's really fantastic and shows that, not only is the segment profitable, but it's also a segment that like you're saying, when you see the NPLs go low as a bank, that is where now you want to focus on, correct? That is where now you want to put your effort on. So that is excellent. Thank you so much, Stanley, for sharing those statistics. They're eye-opener, mind-blowing for me each and every single time. And I wish you all the best as you continue with your program. So now we have the Q&A session, and I have 15 minutes assigned for the Q&A session because I want us to close. I know you've been sitting for a long time, so I won't keep you longer. But I really, really want you to ask questions. So I can see Isis. Isis, your hand is up. Do you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Can we have, if you raise your hand, you unmute yourself, you do your video so that people can identify with the person you're speaking, kindly?
Sure, here's my video. So yes, first of all, thank you for the session, and it's been very interesting and informative to see what is happening, all the efforts being made. I think as someone participating in the ecosystem, more on the side of perhaps a service provider or working with women entrepreneurs directly, I would love to know just from the different banks, what are your kind of most pressing needs in terms of working with service providers and partners? If you can highlight kind of what those things that, if you really could solve this year could really enable you to keep doing the good work that you're doing, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, did you hear that question? The internet was on my side, was a bit, I didn't really get the question from Isis.
Sure, I can repeat it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, I can also type it if I'm not audible. I just wanted to better understand from the banks, because there's a variety of things that you're doing. And I think earlier, McKenna had highlighted that kind of non-financial services are key areas where partners are needed. So I would just love to know what are kind of the priorities around that in terms of what you're looking for in working with service providers, external service providers. Is that clear?
Yeah, that's clear. That's clear, Isis. So banks, what kind of partners are you looking for when you are focusing on non-financial services? So Susan, Margaret.
I can go fast from ABSA. I think for us, what we've highlighted as one of the key things that we are actually looking for more partners to join us is, we are calling them big sisters. We really need women to mentor women to walk this journey. So in that respect, that mentoring and coaching pillar is our very, what is it called? It's our very significant pillar in this journey of working with women. So that's the area I would say for ABSA that we're really looking to get more partners on board. Yeah.
All right, maybe I can answer. Isis, it's good to see you first of all. We've worked together last year, so we worked together briefly, and for us, procurement diversity is huge. But I think Susan has said it so well. It's always so nice when a woman entrepreneur walks the journey with another entrepreneur or a group. So for us, it's similar, but more so driven by the customers, our women. So every quarter we do a research, and actually with the partners, we also try to see what is the topic, what is the need. But yes, I think information access, like I know ISIS, you guys had a program where the information was not getting on the ground. So I feel that also bringing this information to the grassroots, for us, you come in very handy as a partner. Yeah, we have so many women, you find the information is not getting to the women, the real women who need the information. So yeah, big deal.
And Isis, again, thank you. For us, KCB, top on priority is again a digital way of having these women come together to learn from each other, which we're trying to crack. And that is why that is the direction we are taking into when we're looking at who our partners will be in this women space. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Very helpful.
Yes, McKenna, is you come off mute? There was a question that was asked on the chat specific to financial institutions, to Kenya investment mechanism. Maybe Anne, our director in charge of financial institutions, you can.
Thank you, George. I think the question came from Alex Absa. And the question reads, would financing to a tea trader involved in export of processed tea qualify under the Feed the Future Regional? Thank you, Alex, for your question. Yes, it does qualify, and we've been receiving from other banks. So in short, yes, anything that has international aspect or regional aspect, yes. Other than floriculture and things like Mira, those ones, no. But everything in terms of food security, yes, we will take it. Thank you. Back to you, George.
Okay, so thank you so much, Anne, for the responses. Any other questions from the audience? Either you can direct the questions to Kenya Investment Mechanism, you can direct the question to the presenters who have made presentations about their programs, the banks who are here, and we also have business advisory service providers who are in the house, and these are people who support enterprises, and including women-owned enterprises, to be able to access financing from different financiers. I can see several hands raised up. Let me see. I can give the SME Support Center, and then after that we go to Ernest.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for some great insights I got today. So my name is Linda Onyango from the SME Support Center. I know it shows the logo, but it's actually me, Linda Onyango. So I had a couple of questions around the loan evaluations and the review processes around those products that have been highlighted for women. Most of the time I see, as a business advisory support provider, if I speak to some of the deals we'll show later, a lot of the sentiment was around, okay, the banks are just not approving the loans for various reasons. I know the risk assessments have gone higher around the COVID period. So perhaps the bankers can really comment around the critical factors around the loan approval and the risk assessment that you're currently conducting, especially in light of the COVID-19, because I guess typically that's where the rubber really meets the road. Thank you.
That's a very good question, Linda, and nice to meet you here. For us as a bank, I would say that over the years we've been evolving. Of course, with COVID, all of us had to change in one way or another. But to answer your question, I believe was it June or May? We did a whole sector analysis thanks to our data analysis team. Because we had to look at certain sectors that were obviously very much affected by COVID. And it's a fact, you know, even there are, let's be honest, some businesses even shut down. So for us as a bank, because as you know, there is that leeway where we were given there's that opportunity we were given by CBK, at least to restructure some of those loans. So I would say that the risk assessment for us as a bank has to be thoroughly, it's obviously already in line with the risk assessment for the bank and the appetite. But also we do not try to, and this is something, I think the relationship aspect for us as a bank is it's everything that I can ever say. I think for us, we don't try to blanket all the customers. For example, there are women in tourism, yeah, who are business owners, yeah, and actually this is a segment we've been, we've been supporting for years. Education is another. There are women entrepreneurs in education. Were they affected? Yes. But are we still supporting them? Yes. So I would say for us, we like taking one customer at a time, not blanketing and saying, no, tourism, you shut down. It's actually very unfair. But yes, the assessment actually for us, we like one of the training we've been offering customers is what are the mistakes that SMEs have been making. And this was also, driven by the fact that we opened up our unsecured lending. Why? Because some of the mistakes that customers have obviously done, we were trying to cure some of those mistakes. Yeah, it should not be like a jail sentence, including being listed on CRB when COVID shut down. So these are some of the things we've done, and I would take it on a case-to-case basis. Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret, for the response. I want to believe that is satisfactory to the person who had asked the question. Ernest, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Ernest Kavingo of Afriscope Research Limited. Thank you, McKenna and the bankers for, and this is the information you're sharing is welcome. It's good. Now I wanted to find out, since now we have improved, there's the matter of or products like online banking, mobile banking, has that like sort of leveled the field? Because anyone now with a mobile phone, access to the online, you are able to quickly, open up a bank account, and you can also, there's access to loans, although they're a little bit expensive, but I'm just wondering whether that has improved the situation with women and banking.
So sorry, Ernest, can you come again? So sorry, I was distracted by a phone call.
Yes, so I wanted to find out whether products like online banking and mobile banking, have they improved the situation? Do we have now the field being leveled out? Women, they can access banking services. And when we're talking about loans, although yes, a mobile loan, they're fairly much more expensive, but I'm just wondering whether women are much more included right now, especially now that we have online banking and mobile banking. Has it improved the situation?
Yes and no. I can only speak from our experience. Yes and no. On one hand, you find that women have been very receptive to change, to be honest. But on the flip side, you find that there are even women who might not be very digi-savvy. So there are still some women who still prefer to come to our branches, which we keep open. And we also have agency banking and small express branches. But I would say it's yes or no. Also, women, remember, they like their case being handled in a way that it's more customized, because sometimes you might apply. I think Susan spoke to this aspect, where a woman might come to the bank or might go to the online portal and say, I want a loan. They might not know the different categories that are available. So I would say yes and no, but I would tell you for sure, women are very receptive, which is a blessing to the online channels and the online solutions we offer. Yeah, maybe we can hear from other banks. Maybe their experience is different. But yeah, of course, George, so sorry, if I can also add that for us, we've been encouraging, especially last year, remember, we were encouraging the cashless transactions. Transactions that could be done online, we were really encouraging, but at the end of the day, we like the women to choose what is more comfortable for them. At the same time, also making sure that they are safe.
All right, so I was gonna add to what Margaret has said. This is Susan from ABSA, and thank you for the question. I think, let me start by adding on Linda's question. So from a risk assessment perspective, what I would urge, especially for us, is we look at track record, especially now, even with COVID, we know women were more affected than men, and therefore some of them could have chosen to either just give up on the business altogether and do something else. And we've seen that happening where they've reinvented themselves to do something else. And therefore we are looking to see, okay, what's the experience in this new line that they're getting into? And is it something that then can be funded as a long-term venture? So I think those are some of the discussions we are having with them, and understanding, despite their cash flows being beaten because of COVID, just to understand what level are they at and is there a demand, so that then as we make those decisions, we are also looking at them from a demand perspective. So from the question that has just been asked around women accessing better, I would say, actually, even from before, when I looked at some data that Central Bank had released, I think it was in 2018, they actually had said women are more digitally active, even then, right? So I guess this has just sort of like amplified that activity. So we do see a lot of women. I think if I talk from our Timiza platform, and I'm sure KCB can give us some statistics as well from the mobile platform, we actually have, I think it's about 54% of women on that platform, right? So you can actually see their activity is higher even from a borrowing perspective, and they keep repaying. And we do have some success stories actually for women who have really been participating on the mobile platforms when it comes to access to funding and being able to repay many times. So I would say, I mean, I think it just enhances the ability to be able to access the funding that they need. But I would still agree that for higher amounts, you would still need to come to the branch to get that access. So thank you.
Thank you. I had seen a hand from Thomas Kimani.
Yes, thank you, George. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
All right, thank you. Now, I'm Thomas Kimani from Afriscope Research, and we work with a lot of farmers on the ground. And one of the things, just to add on to Anne's question, is we realize there's also the angle of proxy banking and agency banking among women. What do I mean by this? Whereby a woman is using her husband's phone to do her banking, or a woman they're all running their accounts through a single woman. Does this skew the records of women in banking, or capturing what record the banks may have of women in banking? And my second question is, from listening to the bank presentations today, and thank you very much, they were very clear and crisp, I realize most of the banks are still focusing on traders rather than the main farmers, the agricultural farmers. And many of our farmers, many of our women, especially in the rural areas, as much as they sell to maybe mama mbogas. There is a vast majority who still work in the fields who need to grow their businesses. Is there anything specifically geared towards women in the actual agriculture as opposed to trading?
We'll have the banks respond to that. The questions are majorly going to the banks. So can we have maybe, let me see.
Daniel can support from APSA because he's our agricultural specialist. So we actually have a focus on agriculture. So Daniel, you're there?
Thank you, Susan. That's a very good question. Yeah, you're quite right with the assessment of the financing that you will see is geared towards the more organized value chains and more so at aggregator level. And that's not only for the women-led financing, but of course, for financing within the agribusiness space. However, we're looking at where there are more established primary producers and also women-led, and we're still supporting those from both an agri perspective and from a women-led perspective. And also, if we look at, for example, in ABSA's case, we have invoice discounting and LPO financing that is specifically tiered for that purpose. And hence that solution, as more data are to be available, then more of that will then get lent to. And finally, and you will agree, because we're in this space together, the single led one lady financing at a farmer level may not have economic sense leading as an individual. Because if you have to send a bus perhaps to go and then have a loan officer, it may not have that specific return on investment. But when we deploy technology, then we are able to meet the needs of these farmers at that stage. And I can tell you at ABSA, we are at advanced stages with deploying technology that are focused to a great extent the primary farmer, and by extension, our ladies that will be our customers. Thank you.
And this is Stanley again. I was going to say from KCB, we also have an agribusiness unit that really handles the farmers in all capacities, from training to the value to the agri products in terms of each crop or whether all the agri products per se. So, and again, I think we've gone to much more deeper extent of giving them the digital app in the agri space where they're able to borrow the short-term loans to cater for whether it's buying fertilizers, whether it's the things they need for their dairy animals, the dairy feeds, things like that. And again, if I link this to the women proposition we have, we do not say this is a woman farmer. No, we just have, our women proposition cuts across all the segments of the customers in the bank, whether small, whether micro, and whether big. We've tailored products that really suits each of them at the level they are in. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your responses. As we continue, we are just to wrap, we have just 1 more minute remaining for any final question that we may have. Please check the chat section. I have posted a link to collect your feedback about this training, including what other topics you may need us to focus on in future when we are hosting trainings on gender lens investment. We really would appreciate hearing from you. So please take a moment, even as we wrap up, to continue to give us your feedback. So at this point, I will ask if there is one final question before I invite McKenna to just do a wrap up, and then now we call upon Grace to come do the closing remarks to call it a day. Any final question from anyone?
Yes. My name is Edna from Afriscope Research Limited. I do have a question regarding the bank criteria. So from our experience working with the various financial institutions, we know that the banks emphasize a lot on, excuse me, sorry, on the 5 C's of credit, right? Character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. So I was just wondering, how do the banks mitigate their risks when the enterprise does not meet one of the criteria? For example, if you're issuing a loan without collateral, an unsecured loan, will you put more weight on another assessment criteria? Would you consider maybe the character of the entrepreneur or their capacity to repay? Is that how you do it? Because most of the enterprises we've dealt with have a lot of promise, but they lack that one thing, and it's mostly collateral. Thank you.
So let me be the first one to go, Edna. Thank you. I think those C's which you mentioned were a bit edgy. They applied long ago, but for now we look at things like, let me pick unsecured space. What we look at, especially, we see within the scope of our data, the customers that we have, women, for how long have they been with us? And we did actually, we've been doing researches and surveys, quite recent ones, which will inform us that we're handling a very low risk clans, that these are low risk clans, so that we do not want again to subject them to many things that will really frustrate them. So cash flows is one of them. We look at probably the accounts, how is it the performance, the activity, and things like that. But on top of that is the existing relationship. You know, somebody said, I can't remember their names here, relationship management nowadays is key. And this relationship management will demystify most of those C's, because those C's, if you're thorough with those C's, you'll never actually serve those clients. So we look at probably their cash flows, what is it that they're giving us. We attach them to an RM in a bank. An RM will get to learn their life cycles. We'll get to understand them when they wake up and when they sleep. What is the journey like? When they bank with us, what is it that they want? This risk, as I showed you probably from the KCB, you've seen we've lent a lot of, we've disbursed a lot of money to the women led and owned clans. And you've seen the delinquency rate is actually almost zero. And a lot of it, a huge chunk of it is unsecured. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, KCB, for taking that. There is a question that has been put on the chat. The question is coming from SRC, and they would like to understand if the women products have a Sharia window. That's a specific question about Sharia. Any bank, Absa, can we start with Absa? Do you have a Sharia window for the women products that you have shared with us?
Yes, we have Sharia banking. So yes, there's a Sharia window. It's not like for like currently. So we are working on it to make sure it's like for like, since we launched the the SHE account just 2 weeks ago. So we're working on the Sharia one, but definitely we have a Sharia lens looking at women as better payers within our assessment. So thank you.
I think if you have any other questions that you have, you can share with them. You can share with us on email. I have already posted our email. I have posted our handles. We are open to discussing with you. This takes us to really closing out this training. We have said we will hold you until 1 p.m. I just would like to invite McKenna maybe to give some highlights. For me, what has stood out from this training is that doing products that are targeting women is not just about McKenna is calling it making our products pink. It's about really being strategic and using data to inform the decisions that you're making. And one of the things that I also have picked out from this training is that we have already partners who have these products existing. And what I like about this training is that we have brought in banks, and they have presented the products that they have, and some business advisory service providers who work with Kenya Investment Mechanism are also in the house, and they can see these products, and they have a pipeline of opportunities which they can tap into the products that you have. So I feel from a Kenya Investment Mechanism perspective, this is a good way of matchmaking, like market making between the demand and supply of investments, especially when looking at gender lens in investment. I will call upon McKenna to just give a wrap up before I invite Grace, who will give the closing remarks for us and close the training for today. As we had said during the introduction, we will be having one-on-one sessions between the financial institutions, the who we are here, and some of the business advisory service providers who will really engage you deeper, get to present to you some of the opportunities that they have in their pipeline, and see how you can take this connection forward, so that at the end of the day, this training is not just a training like any other, but actually going forward and closing transactions with these business advisory service providers. I can see McKenna has her video on, meaning she is ready to give us some wrap up. McKenna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, George. And let me just start by thanking you so much for your support in helping me bring this training together. It was a very exciting time for me arranging this training, because I'm extremely passionate about women and gender finance. And when I sent out the message and the idea, the response was amazing. So I really want to thank each and every single one of you, starting with the bank, Susan from APSA, and the team, and Stanley from KCB, and Margaret from SBN. Thank you so much for your willingness to participate. And thank you for being so open to share your programs. I really want to acknowledge you for that, and to thank you for your very clear presentations. I learned a lot myself, and I've been in this space for a while, on the different products and the alternatives to collateral. I think that's, for me, is the biggest take home from the training, is that, they are alternatives. And then, just like Stanley was saying, and he actually got what I was saying in the beginning, this whole thing of relationship management, because this is what I've been trying to do. This was my overall objective of this training, was to build relationships between the banks and the business advisory service providers, the BASPs. So, because once that relationship is once there's that connection, then a lot of things can happen. There's an avenue for information. And then you have a relationship. So if I want, for example, if Edna at AfriScope wants a loan for women, or Thomas from AfriScope, they can comfortably talk to Susan and Daniel. They now know who is in charge there. So the whole relationship management aspect is also something that is what I want to leave you with. This is the first session that we've held at KIM of its kind. And like we said, just to echo what George has said, that we having these one-on-one interactive sessions at the end, because we don't want just to have the discussion and leave it there. We actually want to make it, yes, we've talked, we've had the discussion, but what does that mean in terms of accessing financing? And we have a scheme, we've given ourselves a goal to mobilize $30 million US for women by 2023. So we want to make this program that's active. We want the women to access financing. We want the banks to be part of the process. And together, honestly, I really believe that if we work together, we can really begin to see some amazing results, because the tide is changing. And like Stanley is saying, these are now, almost everybody now is focusing on this segment. And as Susan said, or Elizabeth, the segment is huge. So we can be more than 30 banks focusing on women. That for me would be a dream come true. So I just want to thank you all for coming. And some of you have asked for the presentations. We will collect the information and send those out to you. And so thank you for your participation, and hopefully we'll be in touch with you soon. Thank you. Back to you, George.
Thank you so much, McKenna. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure organizing this with you in the background. Grace, please, if you may, you can just turn on your video switch and turn on your mic. Just give us some closing remarks. I want to emphasize, please check the chat section. Use a link that I've provided to just give us feedback about this training. We will really appreciate. Grace, please, Dr. Grace Moy.
Sure. Thank you, George. It's a great honor to have had a standing participation of about 75 to about 90 participants. So we are excited that we've started this conversation as part of Kenya Investment Mechanism team. We are looking forward to raising more than $30 million that we are contractually obligated by the US government through our funding. But I'm also very excited that this is the beginning of innovation around what we're doing, and also conversations, deeper conversations around whether our incentive fee is working, whether the women finance targeted products are working, and whether we're doing better with the associations and networks of women. So I like that ICIS was also part of this conversation. Thank you to KCB, Absa Bank and SBM for your participation. We appreciate the thoroughness in your presentation and just giving us a deeper insight into the products you're doing. So we look forward to adding additional banks. I know McKenna and Anne, we have alluded to this. We have an upcoming tender that will issue out the next coming week around women and entrepreneurship, because we just want to target more of our targets into activities that lead to women, SME finance, fundraising, looking for capital, innovative products. So we are hoping we're able to do that soon. So we'll issue out that tender next week, and we invite banks and other financial institutions to come in. And I'm also looking forward to the afternoon session where we'll have particular pitch decks shared with the banks to look at some of the women SME transactions and deals that we have in the pipeline from our business advisory service providers. So once again, apologies that we are 8 minutes late into the 1 p.m. deadline we had set for ourselves, but grateful that this has been a great morning and great discussions have happened. So I wish everybody a good afternoon and see you soon. Thank you, George.
Thank you, everyone. This brings us to the end of this session, and we really thank you for your participation. And we will share with you the presentations. We'll share with you the recording. We have been recording this training, so we'll be sharing with you. Thank you so much, and you're free to leave and engage with us. You'll still check my message. You will find an email address. For Kenya Investment Mechanism. We are open to have discussions with you. Thank you so much, and have yourself a wonderful remainder of the day.